Chapter 308. Afterward, Song Juanxiu walked away without looking back. The two disciples following beside Song Juanxiu saw this and murmured. Senior brother Song thought too highly of her already. It is simply a fool's talk for her to enter the inner sect. Song Juanxiu scoffed. If she can't enter the inner sect, well, treat it as that she has good luck. If she enters the inner sect, Song Juanxiu narrowed his eyes into slits, and a vicious look flashed across his eyes. The two disciples beside him made eye contact and understood what Song Juanxiu was thinking of. After chasing Song Juanxiu and the rest away, Yi Qingtang calmed her heart once again. The urge for the spirit root to break through which stopped just now continued to build up again, and the warm sensation surged into her abdomen rapidly. Spirit energy lingered around the spirit root and nourished it without a sound. Suddenly, Yi Qingtang felt an unusual burn at the area where her spirit root was, and subsequently, her body temperature rose up. A flow of hot air seemed to rush up from her abdomen to the top of her skull. Instinctively, Yi Qingtang used all her energy and suppressed that intense heat, not allowing it to spread to other areas. As the temperature rose bit by bit, her face turned from white to red. In the spirit consonance river, the faint red light at her abdomen area gradually turned orange. Orange spirit root. Yi Qingtang immediately held her breath. The transformation of the spirit root caused the heat around her body to vanish immediately, and she could clearly sense that the spirit root in her body was completely reborn. From red spirit root to orange spirit root, Yi Qingtang took a few months, and this breakthrough happened to resolve one of her biggest worries. Although it was still an orange spirit root now, as long as her spirit root could be upgraded. In the future, it would be possible to achieve a yellow spirit root, green spirit root, and even the blue spirit root that was stolen from her. Overwhelmed with joy, she took a deep breath to forcefully suppress her excitement. She always felt that there were traces of her spirit root making a breakthrough previously but never managed to reach the last step. However, the rich spirit energy in the spirit consonance river gave her the finishing push. Yi Qingtang could feel that when her spirit root transformed, her abilities had also advanced to the peak of Khanate level 8 from the previous Khanate level 7. In just 2 hours, she actually advanced one entire level. This was simply not what ordinary people dared to think of. 15,000 Xianming points could exchange for such a massive improvement. This was more than worth it to her. The last hint of heartache vanished into thin air at that moment. Yi Qingtang did not spend too much time on improving her spirit root. She only had 6 hours, and once it was over, it would be impossible for her to gather enough Xianming points to cultivate here again in a short span of time. Immediately, Yi Qingtang calmed her heart down and directed her energy all over her body, as though she wished to absorb even more in this short 6 hours. 6 hours passed in the blink of an eye. When Yi Qingtang opened her eyes, there were no other disciples in the spirit consonance river anymore. Yi Qingtang's time in the spirit consonance river was up, and she could only leave. The gains today satisfied her fully. There was still half a month before the inner sect assessment, and she must reach Khanate level 9 in this period of time. Otherwise, the probability of winning against the top 3 elites on the ranking chart was too small. In the next few weeks, Yi Qingtang was absorbed in an almost mad cultivation. Chapter 309. She, who usually rubbed the silver wolf's fur and teased the little lightning dragon, was completely focused on cultivation. The little lightning dragon, which was heavily injured from the spirit condensation mountain village incident, was shoved to the silver wolf to take care of it. The silver wolf looked coldly at the little lightning dragon, which was forcefully shoved to his paw. However, the little lightning dragon was trembling in fear, and before the silver wolf even took a glimpse at it, it immediately fainted by the silver wolf's paw. That morning, Yi Qingtang washed up and prepared to head to the martial arts hall to cultivate. When she reached the entrance of the martial arts hall, she suddenly saw a pale Yun Shu. "Senior brother Yun. Your injuries have not fully recovered. Why are you out already?" Yi Qingtang was a little surprised. Yun Shu smiled faintly. Thank you for worrying about me. My injuries are not serious anymore. It is all thanks to you for helping me to obtain the Shangyue fire tripod back. I used it to cultivate for many days, and my spirit root recovered. I am out for a stretch today. The injuries Yun Shu sustained previously almost caused him to drop the idea of cultivation. If not for Yi Qingtang's plot for Lu Xiuwen to automatically return the Shangyue fire tripod, it would really be difficult for him to find a way out. Really? That's good then. Yi Qingtang smiled earnestly. Yun Shu's fall in her previous life had always been a sore point for her. If she could witness him overcoming the disaster and pulling himself together in this lifetime, she would be relieved. As they were talking, Su Wan and a few other disciples walked past. The moment Su Wan saw Yi Qingtang and Yun Shu, her face turned a little pale, and she looked away instinctively. Junior sister Su, do you know that there were many shocking incidents in the outer sect recently? Lu Yu, who was walking beside Su Wan, did not notice Yi Qingtang and Yun Shu and spoke her mind. What incidents? Su Wan asked. A few days ago, Elder Huang from the outer sect sword faction accepted an amazing genius from the Tian Fu family clan called Yuan Wei. I heard that Yuan Wei has a green spirit root, and his natural endowments were brilliant. The Tian Fu family clan devoted much effort to raise him into an extremely skilled person. Lu Yu replied. A disciple who was walking with them was suddenly energetic. Yuan Wei from the Tian Fu family clan. I've heard of him before. Although he did not enter a sect previously, he had a mighty figure as his master. He is highly skilled and is very famous in the Dongqin area where the Tian Fu family clan was at. People said he is a rare genius in Dongqin. Obviously. If he did not have the skills, why would Elder Huang make an exception to accept him into the outer sect? I even heard that Elder Huang thought very highly of him. Not only did Elder Huang accept Yuan Wei as a disciple, but Elder Huang also made an exception to allow Yuan Wei to participate in the inner sect assessment this year. Lu Yu chipped in. He just entered the sect but can participate in the inner sect assessment. He must be really powerful. If the rumors are true and Yuan Wei is able to enter the top 10 in the ranking charts in the inner sect assessment this year, his future is really limitless. Lu Yu nodded. Just as she was to say something to Su Wan, she suddenly saw Su Wan's stiff expression. Lu Yu instinctively looked around and suddenly saw Yi Qingtang and Yun Shu. Immediately, Lu Yu scoffed. However, that is not considered a shocking incident. In the outer sect of Xianling sect, there is still another shocking incident which is bigger and more interesting. Oh. What is it? Tell me about it. Lu Yu looked at Yi Qingtang and let out a cold laugh. What else can it be? It is just that a certain person overestimated her abilities. After picking up a treasure and presenting it to an elder, she gained a generous number of Xianming points for nothing. Chapter 310 Lu Yu continued talking. This was originally a great thing, but someone just had to overestimate her own abilities. She did not use those Xianming points to cultivate honestly and insisted on exchanging for the qualifications to participate in the inner sect assessment. She even excitedly exchanged for the Spirit Consonance River's usage rights for a few hours. Lu Yu said, won't that someone just look at what spirit root she has? While Lu Yu did not mention the name, all the disciples present knew who she was talking about. The news of Yi Qingtang exchanging for the inner sect assessment's participation qualification and the Spirit Consonance River's usage rights had already circulated in the outer sect over the past 2 days. All the outer sect disciples who heard of the news thought that Yi Qingtang was crazy. Otherwise, why would she do such a wild thing? Senior sister Lu, don't talk about it anymore. Let's leave first. Su Wan mumbled as she tugged on Lu Yu's sleeves. Lu Yu frowned and said softly, are you really easy to be bullied? Are you still not clear what kind of person Yi Qingtang is? If not for her, why would Senior Brother Lu be flogged so many strokes? Senior Brother Lu is still laying on bed to recuperate now. A bitter expression was seen on Su Wan's face as though she suffered a huge wrong. Yun Shu's face darkened immediately when they heard the cutting remarks. He instinctively wanted to walk up to them but was held back by Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang shook her head at Yun Shu slightly with a seeming smile. Senior Brother Yun, why bother arguing with the likes of them? Are you not angry? Yun Shu was surprised. Yi Qingtang chuckled. If a dog bites me, should I bite it back? It was not for them to comment on whether she had the ability. On the day of the assessment, everything would be apparent. Yun Shu was a little shocked and could not help but laugh. Forget it. It is good to ignore them as well. However, what you did this time was indeed rash. I know that your natural endowment is good, but recklessly participating in this year's inner sect assessment, Yun Shu spoke with a serious expression. Yi Qingtang said, don't worry, Senior Brother Yun. Since I did it, I must have a certain level of confidence. Seeing her confidence, Yun Shu did not say anything more. Perhaps even Yun Shu himself did not notice that after the Shangyue fire tripod incident, he was no longer as gentle as before, and there was a fierce expression in his eyes. After sorting their thoughts, the two of them entered the martial arts hall to cultivate without wasting any more time. Su Wan watched Yun Shu and Yi Qingtang leave and bit her finger secretly. She had never expected that Yun Shu still had a chance for recovery while Lu Xiuwen. Yi Qingtang and Yun Shu had just entered the martial arts hall, but a disciple notified them that Elder Huang from the outer sect sword faction summoned Shen Qianshu. Yi Qingtang immediately headed over. In the big hall, Elder Huang had a dignified expression, and an unusual expression passed by in his eyes when he saw Yi Qingtang walking in. Disciple greets Elder Huang, Yi Qingtang said with a kneel. Raise. Elder Huang scanned Yi Qingtang. He naturally did have some impression of Yi Qingtang. After all, she was the only red spirit root whom Xianling sect accepted in the past 100 years. But because of that, Elder Huang did not pay too much attention to this disciple as it was difficult for there to be any improvements since her spirit root was too poor. Yet, unexpectedly. Yi Qingtang, I heard that you exchanged for qualification to participate in the inner sect assessment this year. Elder Huang asked straight to the point. Yes. Yi Qingtang replied. Chapter 311 Ridiculous. Elder Huang's face darkened. Do you know how dangerous the inner sect assessment is? The opponents that you'll be facing are the elite disciples on the ranking chart. As a new disciple who just entered the sect, where did your guts to spar with them come from? Elder Huang had a strict expression, and there was no warmth in his tone. When he heard of this shocking move that Yi Qingtang took a few days ago, he was astonished. Although he did not pay much attention to Yi Qingtang, she was, after all, still an outer sect disciple. Given her abilities, would there not be a spectacle if she went into the ring? Where was he going to place his face as the outer sect elder at then? I know. Yi Qingtang replied calmly. Elder Huang's expression was still foul. You know. If you knew, why would you still do such a thing? In the top 10 disciples of the outer sect, the poorest skilled one is already at the early stage of Khanate level 9. If you battle them, do you know how severely injured you will be? There is even a possibility of dying on the ring. You're simply taking your life as a joke. So be it if it were other disciples, while they might be embarrassed should they enter the arena, they would not be seriously injured. But Yi Qingtang, as a new disciple, probably had not mastered the foundations and was only a red spirit root. How would she be able to withstand those top 10 elites' attacks? If she entered the ring, the best outcome was to be severely injured while the worst. The more Elder Huang thought about it, the more he found it too dangerous. Thus, he summoned Yi Qingtang to persuade her. Yi Qingtang watched Elder Huang persuade her, but her heart did not waver at all as she stood there without any expression. Elder Huang was helpless when saw how stubborn she was. Thinking of how she spent such a large sum of Xianming points to exchange for this qualification to participate in the assessment, she must be determined. I'll not say anything else. If things really reach that stage, you should admit defeat before it's too late. Don't fight head-on. If you injure yourself, any opportunity in the future will have to be given up, Elder Huang said helplessly. A smile passed Yi Qingtang's eyes. While Elder Huang was stern and his words were mostly concerned about his face, she could feel from that last sentence that Elder Huang was really afraid she would die on the ring. I understand. Thank you for your reminder, Elder Huang, Yi Qingtang said. Elder Huang sighed and allowed her to retreat. However, as he watched Yi Qingtang leave, there was a worried look on his face. If Yi Qingtang's natural endowment was as brilliant as Yuan Weiss, he would not have persuaded her. Elder Huang was slightly comforted only when he thought of Yuan Wei. Yuan Weiss' skills were above average, and he was personally accepted as a disciple by him. If he could enter the top 10 on the ranking charts in this assessment, he would really gain a lot of face. Half a month flew by, and the outer sect finally welcomed the most serious assessment. All the outer sect disciples gathered at the square on that day. Watching the 8 trigrams ring in the middle of the square, everyone's hearts fluttered. I wonder how murderous this year's inner sect assessment will be. What else can it be? Do you think everyone has the opportunity to enter the inner sect? Just look at the conditions of those people on the ranking chart. Ji Xianyuan has already reached the peak of Khanate level 9 this year and is only one stage away from Martial Qi. Chapter 312, Senior Brother Ji is the first on the ranking chart and also the first in the outer sect. Who would dare to spar with him? Isn't that seeking death? Not just Senior Brother Ji, but which person on the ranking chart can we defeat? Moreover, only the top 3 elites in today's assessment will be accepted into the inner sect. Even if one managed to clinch the 4th place, they would still be unable to enter the inner sect. Unless you have outstanding natural endowments and the inner sect elders took a fancy on you to make an exception and bring you into the inner sect, you all can just dream on. Many outer sect disciples were gathered at the place and actively discussed the inner sect assessment this year. The wide difference between the inner sect and outer sect was known by everyone. Even if outer sect disciples like them were the best in the outer sect, they would not be able to defeat the low-ranked inner sect disciples. All the outer sect disciples had their eyes set on entering the inner sect, but there were only a few people who had this chance every year. Will the few elders from the inner sect come today? A new disciple who just entered the sect this year asked with twinkling eyes. Yes. The inner sect elders will observe from a side in the assessment every year. Remember, fella. This is the only chance for outer sect disciples like us to see the inner sect elders. You must open your eyes wide and take a clear look later. Thank you for your reminder, Senior Brother. I will definitely remember. That new disciple nodded repeatedly, but he took a glimpse of the ring's sidelines. Senior Brother, why do I not see the inner sect elders? Are you dumb? Will the inner sect elders stand beside the ring? Didn't you see the observation tower behind the ring? The inner sect elders are already in the observation tower right now. They will be able to see everything that happens in the ring later clearly. So that is how it is. But speaking about this, there are still some interesting things to watch this year. What? Didn't you hear? There are 2 dark horses from the outer sect entering the ring this year. One of them is Tain Fu family clan's Yuan Wei, whom Elder Huang personally recommended, while the other is Yi Qingtang, the only red spirit root in our outer sect. Another disciple had a surprised expression on his face. He did hear of Yuan Wei's name before and felt that Yuan Wei had the qualifications to challenge the top 10 people on the ranking chart. But Yi Qingtang. Don't think about it already. Just treat it as watching a spectacle. She wants to humiliate herself, so why should we be worried? Just treat it as a comedy to enjoy. At that instant, everyone was waiting for the assessment to start. Although this ring would decide the only 3 people to enter the sect, any capable person could also enter the ring to challenge those who ranked slightly before them. Even if they did not have the ability to become the top 3, they could still gain another mean of entering the inner sect should their performance be outstanding and the inner sect elders make an exception to accept them as an inner sect disciple. In the observation tower, the inner sect elders were already standing by the window. They glanced across the thousands of outer sect disciples at the square. Elder Lin, do you have any outer sect disciple that you think highly of this year? The Fist faction elder asked with a smile as he looked at Elder Lin beside him. Elder Lin had a calm expression as he took a sip of tea, and his eyes fell on the 8 trigrams ring. It is not important whether I think highly of anyone. What is important is whether they have the qualifications to enter the inner sect. A few days ago, Elder Huang from the outer sect recommended Tian Fu family clan's Yuan Wei. I heard that his natural endowment is good, and I am interested to see his performance today, said the Fist faction smilingly. There's indeed such an incident, Elder Lin said without emotions. Chapter 313 I heard that the outer sect's Ji Xianyuan is skilled and is ranked first on the ranking chart. I wonder if anyone will challenge him today, the herbal faction elder said with a laugh. Then, he seemed to have recalled something and looked at Elder Lin. I heard that Lin Feng challenged the disciple who was ranked 3rd on the outer sect's ranking chart last month and was victorious. He is already ranked 3rd on the ranking chart now. Upon hearing the words Lin Feng, there was a slight change in Elder Lin's expression. Although Feng is young, he is diligent. I am not worried about him. That is a given. Lin Feng is your grandson, and his natural endowments have been good since young. Holding the same family values as you, it seems to me that he will be able to make it today. The herbal faction elder laughed. Whether he has the qualifications to enter the inner sect is still dependent on his performance today. This has nothing to do with whether he is my grandson or not, Elder Lin said. The herbal faction elder laughed and did not say anything further. The few inner sect elders were all aware that the disciple placed 3rd on the ranking charts was the grandchild of Elder Lin from the inner sect sword faction. He was indeed above average, and if there were no accidents, he should be able to enter the inner sect this year. After taking a look at the outer sect disciples below, Elder Lin glimpsed at Elder Qin, whose expression was slightly ugly. Elder Qin, it's been a few days since I saw you. Why are you so unhappy? Could it be that you regret granting Yi Qingtang the qualification to take part in this year's assessment? Although there was no emotion in Elder Lin's tone, there was a hint of sarcasm in his words. Half a month ago, Yi Qingtang presented a mystic treasure of the Blood Moon sect to Elder Qin, and Elder Qin rewarded Yi Qingtang with a huge sum of Xianming points. Yet unexpectedly, these Xianming points were actually used to exchange for the inner sect assessment participation qualification. A new disciple who just entered Xianling sect for a few months actually had the nerve to take part in this assessment. If this was not seeking death, then what was this? Elder Qin was even more displeased after being mocked by Elder Lin. You're overthinking, Elder Lin. Since Yi Qingtang wants to do it, it is inconvenient for me to say anything. I am lost in thoughts only because I lost something. Thank you for worrying. Elder Qin was indeed in a foul mood at that point. That day when Yi Qingtang handed the revolving soul orb to him, he kept it carefully once he returned to the sect. But a few days ago, that revolving soul orb disappeared all of a sudden. He searched every corner in his room but could not find any trace of it and almost fainted in anger. Elder Qin was aware of how rare the revolving soul orb was. However, before the treasure that he just obtained was warm from his touch, it was already gone. He was really infuriated. Elder Lin looked at Elder Qin's frustrated behavior, and a pleased expression emerged in his eyes. Then, he turned away and replied. Since you lost something, you should search carefully. All right. It is about time, the competition is going to start soon. Let's just watch first, said the Fist faction's elder. The square was extremely boisterous. Disciples surrounded the ring, and some were burning with eagerness to try it out while some were waiting to watch the show. At the other end of the ring, 10 elegant and talented young disciples stood there in an imposing manner. Those were the disciples ranked top 10 on the ranking charts. Although Dai Changming was in 10th place, his demeanor was also different from other disciples. The appearance of these 10 people attracted much attention. Envious and fearful eyes were cast towards them. And just as everyone's attention was focused on those 10 people, Yi Qingtang and the Blood Moon sect elder entered the square without a sound. Chapter 3:14. These 10 people's demeanors are indeed different from everyone else's. They're definitely top-notch elites. The Blood Moon sect elder narrowed his eyes while looking at the 10 people on the ranking chart. Just standing in the square, he could already feel the rich air around them which made his blood boil with temptation. Girl, are you competing with a few of them today? The Blood Moon sect elder took a look at the 10 people standing on stage and then looked at Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang made huge improvements over the past few days, and this caused him to be even gloomier. If Yi Qingtang did not gift the revolving soul orb, it would have exploded in these few days. Unfortunately. Man proposes, God disposes. Yi Qingtang shook her head. There were countless rounds of competition in the inner sect assessment where outer sect disciples were individually selected. The ring today is to contend for the top 100 in the outer sect. I am not participating in it, Yi Qingtang said coldly. The 100 people who won today still needed to continue sparring to select the top 50. This continued and ultimately, the top 10 people on the ranking chart would be born. Until a new batch of top 10 disciples remained, Yi Qingtang would not take part in it. She had the participation qualification where she could compete on the last day and did not need to go through back-to-back sparring. It was considered as one of the benefits of the 30,000 Xianming points spent. Not participating? Then what are you here for? The Blood Moon sect elder had a bewildered look. Yi Qingtang glimpsed at him. Have you heard the saying to know one's own strength and the enemy's is the sure way to victory? Everyone who met the requirements in the outer sect could take part in the first day of the inner sect assessment. The wide square was boisterous, and disciples clenched their fists in preparation of a good fight. Yi Qingtang and the Blood Moon sect elder found a corner to observe the match where disciples full of vigor and vitality gave their all. After rounds of sparring, Yi Qingtang gradually had an insight into the disciples' skills. Of course, the top 10 people on the ranking charts were skillful. However, Yuan Wei, whom Elder Huang recommended, displayed extraordinary skills on the first day of the competition. In the successive sparring, he never lost once and very quickly became a dark horse in this year's assessment with his brilliant results. From dawn to dusk, the competition for the first day lasted for an entire day, and the 100 people who ultimately succeeded were to take part in the competition on the second day. Seeing that the competition for the day was over, Yi Qingtang dragged the Blood Moon sect elder and left. The next morning, the assessment continued. Compared to the previous day, although the number of assessment takers reduced by half, the battles were increasingly intense. 50 people were eventually selected after half a day of battle. And the third day. With 10 people being able to make it out of the 50, the fights were even fiercer. In this period of time, Yi Qingtang went to observe the matches every day. Until the assessment on the third day was over and only 10 outer sect elites remained ultimately. And among these 10 people, there was Yuan Wei, whom Elder Huang recommended. On the fourth morning, which was also the final battle for the inner sect assessment, the new batch of top 10 disciples on the ranking chart was already standing beside the ring. Today, the 10 of them will contend for the top 3 positions which would allow them to enter the inner sect. Elder Huang was jovial these few days. Yesterday, Yuan Wei was extraordinary in the competition. Not only did he enter the top 10, he even placed fourth on the ranking chart, and this really inflated his self-esteem. When he saw Elder Lin from the inner sect yesterday, Elder Lin even offered rare praises. Chapter 315, looking at Yuan Wei who was standing beside the ring, Elder Huang could not hide his smile. Congratulations, Elder Huang. You really have a good eye. This Yuan Wei defeated the disciple ranked fourth on the ranking chart yesterday. He really cannot be belittled. In my opinion, there is a high chance for him to challenge the top 3 places with his abilities, praised another elder from the outer sect. It's nothing. It is Yuan Wei himself who has the talent. I just nominated him conveniently. Elder Huang replied humbly, though he was deeply pleased. Apart from Yuan Wei's outstanding performance, the other person who was responsible for Elder Huang's good mood was Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang never entered the ring in the past few days, and he had not seen her today as well, which finally put his mind at ease. He reckoned that after days of competition, Yi Qingtang should have seen the disciples' skills, especially in yesterday's competition where the sparring was even more aggressive with the appearance of the top 10 disciples on the ranking chart. It seemed Yi Qingtang should have understood the situation clearly and probably would not insist on entering the ring today. It was a pity though. Those 30,000 Xianming points were not used for anything and just had to be wasted like that. At that thought, Elder Huang could not help but sigh. Other than the dark horse, Yuan Wei, there was no change in the ranking chart for the top 10 disciples. Ji Xianyuan was still ranked first, and Lin Feng was also ranked third. Rather, Dai Changming, who originally ranked 10th, was pushed back to the 11th rank because of Yuan Wei's addition. Luckily, he cultivated diligently during this period of time and defeated the disciple ranked right before him and climbed back to the 10th place once again. After days of battle, the disciples had more or less some knowledge about the skills of the top 10 people on the ranking chart and as such, recognized the gap between themselves and the top 10 disciples. In the observation tower, the 4 inner sect elders who observed 3 days of competition were gathered together as they waited for the final day of competition. I don't blame Elder Huang for breaking the rules. This Yuan Wei is really promising with great potential. Elder Huang really has a good eye. Elder Lin praised rarely. What do you think, Elder Lin? Yuan Wei isn't the top 3, but he is extremely talented. If you favor him, you can accept him as a disciple and make an exception to accept him into the inner sect, said the Fist faction elder. Elder Lin did not say anything but seemed to be deep in thought. As the elders talked, the competition on the last day officially began. The top 3 disciples who would ultimately enter the inner sect would be decided today. The warden in charge of the competition stood in the center of the ring to declare the start of the competition. Many outer sect disciples were gathered in the square to watch the blood-filled battles amongst the top disciples. Yuan Wei stood below the ring and glanced across the sight before him. Suddenly, Yuan Wei took a step into the arena. His appearance resulted in a flurry of gasps. It should be known that Yuan Wei was currently placed 4th in the ranking chart. Now that he entered the ring once again, there was only one possibility. He wanted to challenge the holder of the top 3 positions. Disciple, Yuan Wei, wishes to challenge the 3rd place, senior brother Lin Feng. Yuan Wei's face had an arrogance of the youth. Loud cheers erupted immediately. Standing below the ring, Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile, which added a tinge of haughtiness on his originally good-looking face. Chapter 316, Junior Brother Yun, since that is what you want, I can only play the game with you till the end. Lin Feng smiled, and with the point of his toes, he leaped into the arena. There were cheers below the ring. Yuan Wei was the biggest dark horse this year and was victorious in all his matches over the past 3 days. Now that he was challenging Lin Feng today, many were boiling with excitement. Do you think that Yuan Wei's chance of winning is bigger or senior brother Lin's chance of winning is bigger? The onlooking disciples discussed fervently. Yuan Wei's skills is indeed powerful, but senior brother Lin is the elite of the elite in our outer sect. Furthermore, his improvement this year is extremely huge. I think that Yuan Wei may not be able to win. Yuan Wei has not lost any round until now, and his moves are quick and fierce. It is still not certain who will win and who will lose in this battle. As everyone was caught up in their discussion, on the ring, Yuan Wei had already attacked. His figure turned into a shadow and the sword into a cold light which flashed across the ring and charged towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng stood rooted to the ground without moving. His narrowed eyes reflected Yuan Wei's shadow, and he smiled briefly. This little junior brother was really so arrogant. Just as Yuan Wei was about to attack Lin Feng suddenly vanished. Losing his target, Yuan Wei was instinctively stunned for a second, but before he could return to his senses, Lin Feng already appeared behind him, and his sword directly stabbed towards Yuan Wei's shoulder. In almost an instant, Yuan Wei turned around and did a backflip, avoiding this fatal blow with only one hand on the ground to support his body. But before Yuan Wei adjusted his posture, Lin Feng already chased after him swiftly with fancy swordplay. The countless glistenings of the sword entered Yuan Wei's eyes. Alarmed, he only managed to raise a sword to counter Lin Feng's attack. The two swords clashed, and a loud clank rang. Yuan Wei used the force to pull some distance between Lin Feng, wanting to change from being on the offense to defense. However, when he did a flip and struck his sword towards Lin Feng was already prepared. He immediately lifted his sword and hurled Yuan Wei's sword away while, at the same time, landing a fierce kick on Yuan Wei's abdomen. In just a moment, Yuan Wei was kicked out of the ring by Lin Feng. Yuan Wei, who fell off the ring, appeared in a rather bad state as he looked in astonishment at Lin Feng, who was looking down at him from a height. That was a good fight, junior brother Yuan Wei. Lin Feng nodded at Yuan Wei with a seeming smile. Although his words were humble, there was arrogance in his voice. Yuan Wei frowned, and Elder Huang came forward to help him up. You've already performed very well. However, it's still too difficult to compete for the top 3 positions. Lin Feng's improvement this year is very huge, and he simply isn't your match. Although Yuan Wei lost, Elder Huang was already extremely satisfied with Yuan Wei's performance over the past few days. He was similarly shocked at Lin Feng's improvement and with his current skills. But, he was afraid that Yuan Wei lost while Lin Feng won, and the onlooking disciples below the ring became restless. Senior brother Lin is still amazing. Yuan Wei is so powerful but could only pass 4 moves. TSK. This is just scary. On the ring, Lin Feng did not walk down from the stage after the sparring. He lifted his chin slightly and glanced across the people. When his eyes fell on Ji Xianyuan, an ambitious expression flashed past his eyes. Chapter 317, Ranking Chart, 2, Since I am in the ring, I also have a target whom I wish to challenge, Lin Feng suddenly said with a smile. Then, he raised his sword and pointed its tip at the first person in the outer sect, Ji Xianyuan. Senior brother Ji, are you willing to come up and exchange a few moves as a teaching? With that said, everyone below the ring cheered immediately. Lin Feng defeated Yuan Wei with only 4 moves, and this shocked everyone. Now that he actually wanted to challenge Ji Xianyuan, the number 1 on the ranking chart, it would really be a highlight match in the outer sect. In the observation tower, there was no expression on Elder Lin's face and only a hint of satisfaction in his eyes as he watched Lin Feng's arrogance. How could his grandson be satisfied with a 3rd place? Ji Xianyuan was called out by Lin Feng before everyone. This was the first time someone dared to challenge him since the first day of the inner sect assessment. With everyone's cheers, Ji Xianyuan slowly walked up to the ring with a calm expression. Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile as he watched Ji Xianyuan walk up the arena. Please offer me some teachings, senior brother Ji. Ji Xianyuan cast Lin Feng a cold look and said calmly, you may attack first, junior brother Lin. Ever since Ji Xianyuan first entered the ranking chart, he had never been defeated in any match. His position on the ranking chart only moved up and never fell. After he topped the ranking chart, no one could shake his position regardless of who challenged him. Lin Feng was really the only person in this past year who dared to challenge Ji Xianyuan's number 1 position. However, everyone witnessed Lin Feng's improvements this year. Everyone was stirred by this fierce struggle between two equally matched opponents as they watched the intense battle that was about to happen soon without blinking an eye. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. A sharp expression passed by his eyes briefly as he looked at the composed and steady Ji Xianyuan. However, he was not anxious to attack. He was not Yuan Wei, who only knew to act rashly. Just as Lin Feng was quietly observing Ji Xianyuan, he suddenly grabbed an opportunity and leaped forward with his sword pointing at Ji Xianyuan's skull. There was no emotion in Ji Xianyuan's eyes. Looking at the sword that was in close proximity, he did not dodge at all. Right when the crowd was nervous, he suddenly threw out a punch at the last second when the sword was about to touch him. This punch accurately landed on the hand which Lin Feng held the sword in. What seemed like a light punch, however, snapped the sword out of Lin Feng's hand. The sword that left Lin Feng's hand gleamed in the midair. Before Lin Feng could react, Ji Xianyuan's upper body was bent forward slightly, and he landed a fierce punch on Ji Xianyuan's stomach. With just a punch, Lin Feng was forced backward. His face turned white in an instant, and cold sweat trickled down from his forehead. There was dead silence below the ring. No one expected that Ji Xianyuan could cause Lin Feng to pale in just 2 moves. Just looking at Lin Feng's contorted expression, it was easy to know how heavy that punch was. These were the skills of the number 1 on the ranking chart. A powerful combat ability that could be comparable to that of an inner sect disciple's. Lin Feng panted faintly. Forcefully straightening himself, he looked at the emotionless Ji Xianyuan opposite of him. Senior brother Ji is indeed powerful. I admit defeat. No matter how unwilling he was, he clearly saw how frightening the gap between him and Ji Xianyuan was. Even if he continued fighting, he would only be embarrassing himself. After hearing Lin Feng's words, Ji Xianyuan turned around and walked down the ring silently as though nothing ever happened just now. Chapter 318, Ranking Chart, 3. The number 2 on the excellence roll initially had the thought of challenging Ji Xianyuan, but after witnessing the sight, he completely waved the white flag and dropped the idea of snatching the number 1 position. Only God knows that Ji Xianyuan was this powerful. In the observation tower, Elder Lin saw Lin Feng's defeat, but there was not much expression on his face. As the elders saw that there was no one else who went up to the ring, they knew that the inner sect assessment for this year would conclude soon. The top 3 on the excellence roll is already finalized. We should give them the qualifications to enter the inner sect. Elder Lin stood up slowly and was about to grant the top 3 the inner sect entrance qualification with the other 3 elders. The disciples in the square thought about how exciting the matches were today and wished they had such powerful skills as well. Elder Huang, who was beside the ring, heaved a sigh of relief secretly. When he saw that the few elders walking out from the observation tower, Elder Huang immediately welcomed them with other outer sect elders. Greetings, elders, Elder Huang said. Elder Huang, Yuan Wei did pretty well this year. The person you selected is amazing. Elder Lin praised. Elder Huang was delighted and felt that his face was glowing. Since the assessment this year has ended, the top 3 can be granted admission into the inner sect already, Elder Lin said. Noted. Elder Huang nodded and immediately turned to walk up the ring. Under everyone's gaze, he announced, the inner sect assessment today is already over. Before Elder Huang finished his sentence, a clear female voice suddenly sounded from the crowd. Elder Huang, I have not taken my assessment. With that, Elder Huang felt a tug on his heart, and everyone looked in the direction of the voice. What appeared before their eyes was the small-framed Yi Qingtang was walking towards the ring. This sight caused Elder Huang's heart to rise up his throat. Discussions exploded in the square. Yi Qingtang? She really dared to come? It can't be. I didn't see her entering the ring these few days. I still thought those rumors were false. Don't joke anymore. With just that level of skills, she may just be beaten into a pulp by all these senior brothers. Don't be blinded by her face. There was a flurry of discussions in the square. Everyone felt that Yi Qingtang must be crazy. Otherwise, why would she still dare to seek death after witnessing so many rounds of the competition? As they were discussing, Yi Qingtang had already walked up to the ring and handed the assessment qualification waist tablet that she exchanged from Elder Qin into Elder Huang's hands. Elder Huang frowned in exasperation that his words fell on deaf ears and wished he could just pull Yi Qingtang down from the stage. Why is this girl so stubborn? Does she know how dangerous this ring is? This is my assessment qualification. Please verify it, Elder Huang. Elder Huang's lips twitched as he looked at the waist tablet in his hands and tried to maintain his composure. This is the waist tablet for the inner sect assessment. Are you aware that if you use this qualification, you'll have to directly challenge the top 3 people on the excellence roll? Elder Huang hinted at Yi Qingtang for the last time. Her waist tablet could allow her to skip the competitions in the previous day but also restricted the opponents that she had to challenge to the disciples who were placed in the top 3 positions. I am aware. Yi Qingtang nodded. Elder Huang was really mad that he did not know what to do. Yi Qingtang, since that is what you want, I will permit you to start your assessment. However, remember not to force yourself. In the end, Elder Huang still could not help but advise her again. Chapter 319, Ranking Chart, 4, Yi Qingtang nodded. The assessment continued, and Elder Huang could only walk down the stage temporarily. The inner sect assessment, which should have ended, was extended because of Yi Qingtang's arrival, and the disciples who were about to leave stopped in their tracks. Perhaps in scorn or curiosity, their eyes were fixed on Yi Qingtang. After a few rumors from the insiders, many were more or less aware of the background of this girl on the stage. Elder Lin and the rest, who were about to grant qualification certificates to the top 3 on the excellence roll, stopped walking as well and waited at the side of the ring for the last match to start. Disciple Yi Qingtang is contending for a qualification to enter the inner sect. Yi Qingtang declared on the ring. This neither haughty nor humble statement attracted many cheers. Below the ring, Lin Feng looked at Yi Qingtang and smiled briefly. He shrugged his shoulders and walked up into the ring with large steps where his tall frame faced Yi Qingtang. Elder Huang from aside was extremely conflicted. Although Lin Feng lost to Ji Xianyuan, his skills were evidently way above that of normal outer sect disciples. How could Yi Qingtang fight him? Please take care of me, junior sister Yi. The corners of his lips were tugged up. He was the 3rd on the excellence roll, and since Yi Qingtang wanted to contend for the inner sect qualification, she would naturally spar with him. Looking up towards Lin Feng who was already ready to strike an attack, Yi Qingtang suddenly spoke out. Wait. Lin Feng initially wanted to end this nonsense of a competition as soon as possible and thus could not help but frown when he heard Yi Qingtang. Why? Could it be that you regret your decision? At that instant, Elder Huang earnestly wished Yi Qingtang would have a sudden awakening and quickly come down from the ring. There were muffled laughs among the surrounding disciples as well. Indeed. Not many had the boldness to spar with such a skilled elite like Lin Feng. However, just as everyone assumed Yi Qingtang regretted going into the ring, Yi Qingtang suddenly lifted a hand. Her finger moved past Lin Feng on the stage and pointed at Ji Xianyuan, who was standing below the ring. I want to challenge senior brother Ji, the number 1 on the excellence roll. Yi Qingtang's words caused a blast of comments in the square. Is Yi Qingtang crazy? She actually wants to challenge senior brother Ji directly. What kind of joke is this? With her skills, she might not even make it through one move from senior brother Ji. All the disciples were completely shocked by Yi Qingtang's words. Elder Huang's heart, which had just calmed down, raced immediately. He widened his eyes in disbelief and looked at Yi Qingtang. On the ring, Lin Feng was dumbfounded for a moment. An astonished expression flashed across his eyes. He obviously did not expect Yi Qingtang's appetite to be this huge. She actually initiated a challenge to Ji Xianyuan directly. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes, and his lips curled into a sarcastic smile. With a casual shrug, he turned to look at Ji Xianyuan. Senior brother Ji, junior sister Yi wishes to spar with you. I guess you can only help to fulfill her wish. Then, Lin Feng jumped down from the ring. There was no expression on Ji Xianyuan's face as he walked up to the ring after casting a look at Yi Qingtang. According to the inner sect assessment qualification that Yi Qingtang obtained, she could challenge any one of the top 3 disciples on the excellence roll. However, the act of directly challenging the number 1 was unbelievably insane. Chapter 320, The Top of the Outer Sect, 1, Senior Brother Ji, I'm honored to learn from you. Yi Qingtang finally smiled as she saw Ji Xianyuan walking onto the arena. Ji Xianyuan just nodded slightly. His face was expressionless. After Lin Feng challenged the top position of Ji Xianyuan, all disciples knew the true ability of Ji Xianyuan. His ability was comparable with inner sect disciples. Who else in the outer sect dared to challenge him? Yet, unexpectedly, Yi Qingtang was so bold. Elder Qin, who was standing at the side of the arena, frowned upon hearing Yi Qingtang's choice. Elder Lin's showed a peculiar sight as he witnessed the concern Elder Qin showed. The warden who was in charge of the arena announced the beginning of the competition after confirming with Yi Qingtang. This competition was different from the rest today. The whole square was silent after the announcement was made. This was completely a one-sided challenge. No one even had any expectations for Yi Qingtang. When everyone was out of interest, Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes. However, she did not begin her attack. Instead, she was staring at Ji Xianyuan cautiously. Ji Xianyuan took a quick glance at Yi Qingtang and attacked instantly. His body appeared like a streak of light on the arena. He did not even pull out his sword as he dashed towards Yi Qingtang like the wind. His fist smashed towards Yi Qingtang's temple as he landed on the ground. However, the instant when Ji Xianyuan raised his fist, Yi Qingtang's heel turned, and her tiny body moved sideways. The sharp wind created by the fist flew through her hair on the temple. Boom! The wind created by the fist smashed the stone pillar behind Yi Qingtang. The crushed stones flew away and dropped to the ground. As the dust spread, all disciples who were not interested previously were stunned. How is Yi Qingtang so lucky? One disciple stared at the crushed stone pillar and was shocked when he noticed Yi Qingtang was not hurt at all. If the fist landed on the human body, even if this person did not die instantly, they would be disabled. No one expected Yi Qingtang to be able to dodge the first attack away by luck. Did senior brother Ji not use his full strength? Lin Feng raised his brows. He did not believe that Ji Xianyuan's attack would be dodged away by a new disciple. Ji Xianyuan frowned as his first attack missed. He stared at Yi Qingtang, whose face still remained calm. His eyes sparkled. At the next second, Ji Xianyuan stepped on the ground and opened his fist. Strong air currents were concentrated in his palm. The Gale Palm. Elder Huang, who was at the side of the arena, was stunned when he saw Ji Xianyuan's palm. The Gale Palm was the most powerful palm skill in the outer sect. Its power was unimaginable, and even the wind created was extremely sharp. Within a second, Ji Xianyuan smashed his palm towards Yi Qingtang's head. Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes as the strong wind blew her hair up. Suddenly, a trace of cold light appeared in her eyes. The moment Ji Xianyuan smashed down his palm, her body leaned backward, and she raised her left arm. The white hand swiped across Ji Xianyuan's palm, but she did not manage to hold the palm. However, Yi Qingtang's hand suddenly turned and grabbed Ji Xianyuan's wrist. Her feet pushed off the ground and jumped backward. She pushed down Ji Xianyuan's wrist and smashed towards the 8 trigram stage using the downward force. Chapter 321, The Top of the Outer Sect, 2, Boom. A huge crack appeared at the area where the palm landed. Tiny crack lines suddenly spread across the whole arena. Ji Xianyuan frowned and lifted his leg. Yi Qingtang used her arm to fend off the kick. Her hand that was holding his wrist did not let go, and she used her leg to attack Ji Xianyuan's lower body. Ji Xianyuan supported himself with one hand to dodge off the kick. He rotated his wrist and held Yi Qingtang's hand. He pulled strongly and smashed Yi Qingtang towards the arena as he turned his body. Yi Qingtang's eyes sparkled, and she used her elbow to support herself on the ground. She flipped backward and used her feet to kick towards Ji Xianyuan's face. The two of them released their hands at almost the same time. Ji Xianyuan backed off immediately to dodge the kick. Yi Qingtang stood up and noticed the blood coming out from the cut on her face caused by cracked stones. Within a split second, the atmosphere between the two of them was totally different. There was complete silence at the square. The outer sect disciples were shocked as they witnessed what had just happened. Is it a joke? Am I seeing things? How is it possible? Yi Qingtang fended off Ji Xianyuan's gale palm. She could even fight with him for a few rounds without being on the disadvantaged side. Lin Feng, whose face was calm, also hid the smile on his face instantly. Elder Huang was also astonished. The moment Ji Xianyuan smashed his palm, he thought Yi Qingtang would definitely lose. He never imagined that Yi Qingtang wiped off the blood on her face with her fingers and squinted her eyes. Ji Xianyuan was indeed strong as the top person in the outer sect. However, this fight, she must win. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath and began her attack. She pulled out her sword and dashed towards Ji Xianyuan. Ji Xianyuan's sight changed as Yi Qingtang approached her in a split second. Her speed was as fast as lightning. The cool light from the tip of the sword pierced straight towards his heart. Ji Xianyuan rotated his body sideways immediately and lifted his leg to kick towards Yi Qingtang's sword. However, it seemed that Yi Qingtang was prepared for that. The moment Ji Xianyuan lifted his leg, she lowered her arm, and the sword in her hand went past his leg and pierced towards his waist. Such a swift reaction. Ji Xianyuan was stunned and pulled out his sword using his right hand instinctively. A crisp sound was heard. Yi Qingtang's sword was fended off by Ji Xianyuan's sword. Senior brother Ji just used his sword. Many disciples opened their eyes wide as they stared at the sword in Ji Xianyuan's hand. Even when he was fighting with the third person, Lin Feng, on the honor roll list, Ji Xianyuan only used the handle of the sword to beat Lin Feng. He was forced to use his sword now. How ridiculous this was. It was another round of dead silence at the square. Everyone's faces were full of surprise. Junior sister Yes' ability is really beyond my imagination. I didn't know that there was a disciple like you in the outer sect, Ji Xianyuan said. Everyone was taken aback as they heard Ji Xianyuan's words. Ji Xianyuan just approved Yi Qingtang's ability. How could this be? Senior brother Ji is as strong as the rumors say. Yi Qingtang was not trying to be polite. Ji Xianyuan's ability deserved the top position in the outer sect. Chapter 322, The Top of the Outer Sect, 3, everyone at the square looked at Yi Qingtang in a complex way. No one could imagine that such an insignificant disciple would make the top on the honor roll list. Ji Xianyuan, get so serious. Elder Huang's concern had become a strange feeling. He could not describe how he felt now as he stared at Yi Qingtang. He even had some expectations now. Other disciples might not notice during the fight, but Elder Huang had seen everything clearly. Ji Xianyuan did not hold back at all. Every single move was ferocious. However, Yi Qingtang could fend off all of them and even took the chance to attack. It was hard to tell who was stronger now. No one expected that she could fight with the top disciple of the outer sect until now. Only until now did Elder Huang then understand why Yi Qingtang had the courage to challenge Ji Xianyuan. I was wrong this time. Elder Huang sighed. Based on Yi Qingtang's moves just now, he was astonished by her ability. Even if she lost in the end, it would still be an honor. She would be another strong candidate in the inner sect assessment this year. Ji Xianyuan took a light breath and stared at Yi Qingtang. It's an honor to have a battle with you, junior sister Yi. The moment when he finished his sentence, he pulled out his sword. A streak of cold light appeared beside him as he dashed forward. Yi Qingtang smiled. She did not back off, and instead, she raised her sword and was ready to fight. The light of the sword sparkled on the arena instantly. Only two shadows could be seen. They moved so fast that many disciples were dazzled. Everyone's sight was captured by the two people on the arena. Yi Qingtang is insane to be able to fight against the top person of the outer sect. She is a monster. How long has she entered the sect for? Ji Xianyuan is at the peak of Khanate level 9. Ji Xianyuan's state was entirely different from before. His sight was very sharp. As he split his sword down, the sword breath filled the whole arena. It seemed to create a violent gust of wind. Yi Qingtang's body changed into a virtual and blurry figure. She took a lap, and her hair was flying under the wind. Her sword was dyed gold by the sunlight, and she pierced the sword directly at Ji Xianyuan. The sound of the swords colliding, and the shadows of the sword sparkling were everywhere in the arena. Lin Feng stared at this intense battle unbelievably. His eyes were full of surprise. He clearly knew how strong was Ji Xianyuan after experiencing a battle with him. That was the reason why Lin Feng could not believe that there was anyone in the outer sect that was able to fight against Lin Feng. Yi Qingtang. What was her background? Lin Feng did not even hear of this name before the inner sect assessment. However, Yi Qingtang was engaged in an intense battle with Ji Xianyuan when Lin Feng himself could not even compete with him. Even Dai Changming, who was in the same mission with Yi Qingtang before, was shocked by the battle. He was so nervous when Yi Qingtang stepped onto the arena. However, the nervousness was long gone, and his whole body was filled with astonishment. Chapter 323, The Top of the Outer Sect. 4. Yi Qingtang and Ji Xianyuan had more than 100 attacks on the arena. Every attack was intense and fatal. The arena that was cracked was about to collapse under the constant force. Under the intersections of the sword light, Yi Qingtang pulled herself away from Ji Xianyuan as she jumped to the corner of the arena. The delicate face was full of sweat now. No one could even imagine being able to break through Khanate level 9 in such a short period of time. Yi Qingtang put in all her effort to reach today's level and had the ability to fight against Ji Xianyuan. However, she could not drag this on anymore. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. She had just entered the peak of Khanate level 9, so her spirit energy was not as strong as Ji Xianyuan's. She mainly relied on her fighting experiences from her previous life to be able to fight against Ji Xianyuan up to now. If she dragged on further, her spirit energy might not be able to hold on anymore. Yi Qingtang immediately made a decision in her heart. Ji Xianyuan's breath was not as stable as before as well. He was surprised by Yi Qingtang's abilities. If he did not experience the fight against Yi Qingtang, he could not believe the 15-year-old young lady had entered the state of Khanate level 9. However, when Ji Xianyuan was about to attack, Yi Qingtang moved first. Yi Qingtang lowered her body as she dashed over. It was surprising that she kept her sword back. Her right hand was placed on the handle of the sword, but it seemed that she did not intend to pull out her sword. Ji Xianyuan felt something was peculiar, but Yi Qingtang was dashing towards him. He shouted and focused all his spirit energy on his sword. The moment he raised his sword, countless scales were concentrated on the edge of his sword. Ji Xianyuan split his sword down immediately. The strong sword breath crushed everything around him. As Yi Qingtang approached him, her figure suddenly sparkled across his eyes. The tiny figure suddenly split into two, and he could not tell which one was the real one. Ji Xianyuan was stunned. Before he could differentiate which one was the real one, Yi Qingtang pulled her sword and pierced forward with her fastest speed as he was distracted. Ji Xianyuan only saw a streak of cold light flying out of Yi Qingtang's waist. As he withdrew his sword to defend himself, he then realized. His sword dropped onto the messy arena without him realizing that. A deep wound appeared on the hand that was holding the sword, and the wound spread across his entire hand. Blood was flowing out of his wound and dripping onto the ground. A sudden pain spread out from his chest. Ji Xianyuan lowered his head instinctively. His chest was cut by the sword. Yi Qingtang raised her sword up under the sight. The sword was covered with blood. A drop of blood flowed down the sword and landed in front of her. The whole square was dead silent. Everyone's gaze was focused on Yi Qingtang's sword. "Senior brother Ji, do not mind that." Yi Qingtang swung her sword to get rid of the blood and kept the sword back. Ji Xianyuan touched the wound on his chest gently. The warm blood filled his fingers. His eyes were full of surprise. The wound was not very deep, but he was clear that if this were not a battle, Yi Qingtang's sword would have killed him if she had used slightly more strength. Chapter 324, Victory, 1, I lost. Ji Xianyuan took a breath and announced his defeat. He picked up his sword and signaled to Yi Qingtang before walking off the arena. Yi Qingtang was the only one on the arena now. Yi Qingtang won. She really won against Ji Xianyuan. Everyone who watched the whole battle felt that it was so hard to believe. Was that real? Did senior brother Ji lose? The outer sect disciples would never believe what they just saw if they had not witnessed that with their own eyes. Ji Xianyuan lost, to a new disciple who just entered the sect for a few months. Furthermore, Yi Qingtang only possessed a red spirit root. Everyone felt it was insane as it was too hard for them to believe. Elder Huang's face was full of astonishment. He only realized what had just happened when he heard the discussions around. He raised his head to look at Yi Qingtang. It seemed to be a dream to him. Yi Qingtang really defeated the top of the outer sect. Was it a joke? Elder Huang was in a complex mood. The feeling of joy slowly spread out in his heart. Previously, he did not agree with Yi Qingtang's crazy decision, but now, he felt glad that Yi Qingtang insisted. Who knew that this girl really would win? Furthermore, she defeated Ji Xianyuan. Elder Huang was delighted now. Yi Qingtang did not lose on the arena, and instead, she earned the reputation for him. Such a miracle. No one expected that there would be such a reversion to the inner sect assessment. Ji Xianyuan, who always remained as the top, was defeated by Yi Qingtang. The new disciple whose name was unknown previously suddenly became the top on the honor roll list. Everyone was having a heavy heart at the moment. Yi Qingtang was the top on the honor roll list now. The others on the list all moved back by one position. Ji Xianyuan became the second, and Lin Feng, was kicked out of the top 3. Anyone still want to battle? The warden went up to the arena. He glanced around and asked. Everyone on the honor roll list remained silent. No one dared to challenge Ji Xianyuan or Yi Qingtang, who just defeated Ji Xianyuan. No one went up to the arena after a while, and the inner sect assessment came to an end. Elder Qin stared at Yi Qingtang in a satisfied way. He agreed to give the permission of attending the inner sect assessment to Yi Qingtang all because of her stubbornness. He did not expect that she would bring such a surprise. Her 30,000 Xianming points were really worth it now. Yi Qingtang is not bad, I feel. She brings a little surprise to the inner sect assessment. The fifth section elder commended after watching the entire battle. Not bad indeed, Elder Lin said coldly, but his sight landed on his grandson Lin Feng, who was kicked out of the top 3 on the honor roll list. Lin Feng had great improvements this year. I intended to take him in as an inner sect disciple. Other elders were not surprised with what Elder Lin said. Lin Feng's ability could qualify him to be an inner sect disciple. He was only kicked out of the top 3 by accident. The assessment has ended. It's time to give them the qualification to enter the inner sect now, Elder Qin said and smiled. Yi Qingtang was the top person for the assessment, and the permission to attend the assessment was given by Elder Qin. The task of giving the qualification certainly landed on Elder Qin. Chapter 325, Victory. 2. Elder Qin walked up to the ring immediately and announced the list of names who entered the inner sect this time. Apart from the top 3 people on the excellence roll, Lin Feng obtained the qualifications to enter the inner sect as a disciple of Elder Lin. The 4 people walked up to the ring. Ji Xianyuan's wound was already bandaged by the physician. Although his face was still a little pale, his extraordinary charisma never decreased. And what attracted people's attention the most was naturally Yi Qingtang. At that instant, all the outer sect disciples looked at Yi Qingtang in extreme shock. The match today challenged all of their knowledge. To enter the outer sect from the inner sect, most disciples would have to take years, and some might not even have this opportunity even in 10 years. Yet, unexpectedly, Yi Qingtang actually topped the excellence roll after entering the sect for only a few months. This was the fastest speed in Xianling sect's history. From today on, you all are Xianling sect's inner sect disciples and must place the sect's glory as a priority. Elder Qin looked at the 4 valiant disciples before him and handed a waist tablet to each of them. That was proof that symbolized that they were in the inner sect. The 4 people accepted the waist tablet. From now on, they were no longer outer sect disciples but members of the inner sect. It was only one step away but a world of differences. All the disciples below the ring looked on in envy. With this inner sect waist tablet, Yi Qingtang and the other 3 people were different from them. Yi Qingtang looked at the familiar waist tablet and a smile flashed across her eyes. In the previous lifetime, Yi Qingtang spent countless years in order to obtain the qualification to enter the inner sect. Yi Qingtang, Elder Qin suddenly said. Yi Qingtang walked up immediately. Here. There was a smile in Elder Qin's eyes when he looked at Yi Qingtang. Ever since Yi Qingtang participated in the sect assessment, she had brought him many surprises. Now that she entered the inner sect with such brilliant results, it was really great. You placed first in the assessment this year. According to the sect rules, the number 1 can receive a reward from the Xianming Pavilion. Then, Elder Qin handed a scroll to Yi Qingtang in front of everyone. Later, you can bring this scroll to the Xianming Pavilion in exchange for your reward. Yi Qingtang received the scroll with a calm expression, though her heart was filled with flutters. Challenging Ji Xianyuan was exactly to obtain this reward. The disciples watched Yi Qingtang keep the scroll with overflowing envy in their eyes. This scroll could allow Yi Qingtang to choose any item below 50,000 Xianming points in the Xianming Pavilion, regardless of whether it was a cultivation technique scroll, weapon, spirit pet or elixir. To the outer sect, 50,000 Xianming points was simply an unimaginable number. Many people might not be able to earn so many Xianming points in their entire lifetime, and it was even more impossible to touch those precious treasures. Everyone could not do anything other than feeling envious of her. Yi Qingtang's skills were displayed before their eyes, and even if they were envious, they could only watch on. After all, Yi Qingtang entered the inner sect as the number one on the excellence roll. With their little skills, there was no way they could be regarded in the same category. Seeing that everything was settled, Elder Qin decided to return to the inner sect first. However, at that instant, an extremely swift figure flew past at a speed where no one could see it clearly. Chapter 326, Victory. 3. The disciples in the square felt an overpowering force shrouding them from above, and they looked at the sky immediately. Elder Qin looked up, and his lips curled into a smile when he saw the figure that resembled a shooting star. Elder Mo. When Elder Qin finished his sentence, the figure suddenly landed from the sky, and a tall figure appeared on the ring. In just a moment, a strong overbearing force spread throughout the square when that person landed, even causing some disciples to have some difficulty breathing. Elder Qin. The person who landed on the ring had a detached disposition. He looked 60 years old, but his straight back and deep set of eyes did not have any trace of his aging. Are you just returning to the sect, Elder Mo? What a coincidence. The inner sect assessment just ended, and we are about to return to the inner sect. Elder Qin spoke to Elder Mo with a smile. Elder Mo looked at the four people on the ring without any emotions on his face. It ended already? Yes, Elder Qin said. The disciples in the square looked at Elder Mo whom Elder Qin was talking to on the ring and were a little out of breath from the overwhelming air around him. Who is this Elder Mo? How could he have such an overbearing force? A disciple took a deep breath quietly. They knew how powerful the inner sect elders were, and although Elder Mo controlled the movement of the air around him, the slight overbearing force he let out by accident was enough to cause them discomfort. Elder Mo is the inner sect's internal affairs elder. There is a total of 10 elders in the inner sect. Elder Qin, Elder Lin, and the two other elders we saw previously are the administrative elders of the inner sect who not only manage the inner sect disciples but also handle some important affairs in the outer sect. On the other hand, the internal affairs elder is only responsible for inner sect matters and is not bothered about any outer sect matters at all. I heard that, the internal affairs elder's abilities are just right below the sect master's. It is our honor to be able to meet Elder Mo, the internal affairs elder. If not for this coincidence, outer sect disciples like us would never get to see him unless we enter the inner sect. As the disciples lamented in their hearts, Elder Mo had already exchanged a few words with the other elders, and they returned to the inner sect together. After the inner sect elders left, the disciples surrounded in the square finally dispersed gradually. Yi Qingtang and Ji Xianyuan made eye contact, nodded slightly, and walked down the ring. The moment she just stepped down from the ring, Elder Huang, who was in all smiles, walked up. Yi Qingtang, you performed well today. Elder Huang's smile at that instant was exceptionally bright. First, Yuan Wei achieved 4th place in the excellence roll, which brought him honor, and afterward, Yi Qingtang took the number 1 position. His mood right now was relatively great. Thank you, Elder. Yi Qingtang smiled. However, you must not slack off in the future. Once you enter the inner sect, you must work a few times harder. Elder Huang advised cheerily and then allowed Yi Qingtang to leave. After bidding goodbye to Elder Huang, Yi Qingtang wanted to return to her room directly, but before she reached her room, she was suddenly blocked by someone. Qin Huan, Gu Yanxiu, and others were actually standing outside Yi Qingtang's room, and right when they saw her, they immediately stretched a hand out to stop her. Chapter 327, Treasure Collection. 1. Yi Qingtang wanted to return to her room and get a change of clothes but ended up being dragged away by Qin Huan and the rest. Congratulations for today, junior sister Yi. I'll play the host tonight and treat you to a good meal. Qin Huan hit his chest generously. Senior brother Qin, this is not a place to treat one to a meal. Yi Qingtang looked at the Xianming pavilion before her and cast Qin Huan a speechless look. Treat, I will definitely treat you. However, you obtained the number 1 position in the inner sect assessment this year. According to the rules, you can exchange for a treasure below 50,000 Xianming points in the Xianming pavilion. Qin Huan grinned and said. Junior sister Yi, I usually spend all my Xianming points on elixirs and have never really seen the treasures in Xianming pavilion. So, let me share some of your spotlight and accompany you to select an item. How about that? The corners of Yi Qingtang's lips twitched slightly. She was wondering when Qin Huan had been so kind to be this anxious to give a treat, but it turned out that this was waiting for her. Gu Yanqiu from aside could not help but let out a laugh. He was aware of Qin Huan's plan, but he wanted to congratulate Yi Qingtang as well, so he came along. Yi Qingtang was a little helpless. However, her reward would have to be claimed sooner or later. Since Qin Huan and the rest wanted to take a look, so shall it be. Immediately, Yi Qingtang entered the Xianming pavilion ahead of everyone. There were many disciples selecting items to exchange for in the Xianming pavilion. Isn't that Yi Qingtang? A disciple suddenly saw Yi Qingtang, who walked into the Xianming pavilion, and his eyes popped. Yi Qingtang? Which Yi Qingtang are you talking about? Who else can it be? It is really your loss to not watch the inner sect assessment today. You don't know that this Yi Qingtang won the number 1 position on the excellence roll just a while ago. Is that real? But didn't I hear that Yi Qingtang is a red spirit root previously? Didn't she just enter the outer sect this year? She is indeed a red spirit root, but so what? You didn't see her skills when she was sparring with senior brother Ji on the ring today. It was simply amazing. I heard that she could participate in the assessment this time because she spent 30,000 Xianming points to exchange for the qualification. Since she is the first, won't she be able to choose any treasure within the price range in Xianming Pavilion now? The attention of all the disciples was attracted by Yi Qingtang's news, and everyone's eyes fell on her uniformly. Looking at the back view of that thin frame, it was difficult for them to connect her with the number 1 on the excellence roll. What kind of reward do you think Yi Qingtang will choose? This is not easy to say. There are so many treasures in Xianming Pavilion, and it's a difficult problem for anyone. What's so hard about it? Give me a random item, and I'll still want it. Dream on. Do you think you are Yi Qingtang? As the people discussed, Yi Qingtang and the rest had already arrived at the counter to exchange weapons. The warden behind the counter was the same person who showed Yi Qingtang all types of weapons the other day. He found it strange after Yi Qingtang left without choosing anything that day and only realized afterward that Yi Qingtang's Xianming points had already been used to exchange for the inner sect assessment qualification. Now that he saw Yi Qingtang in the Xianming Pavilion again, that warden was no longer as excited as before. After all, the huge sum of Xianming points in Yi Qingtang's hands were already all spent, and there was nothing he could squeeze from her. Chapter 328, Treasure Collection. 2. Yi Qingtang faced the warden and said, "Can I trouble you to let me take a look at the demonic blood sword?" Demonic blood sword? Qin Huan had a face of shock. He had heard of its name before and did not expect that this sword was actually in their sect. Looking at Yi Qingtang's stance, it was clear that she wanted it since a long time ago. At that thought, Qin Huan felt a chill down his spine. Strangely, he always felt that apart from the aim of entering the inner sect, Yi Qingtang directly challenged Ji Xianyuan in the inner sect assessment was most likely, because she had her eyes on the reward for the first place in the assessment. The more Qin Huan guessed, the more he felt that Yi Qingtang's thoughts were unfathomable. When exactly did she make this decision? Upon hearing Yi Qingtang's words, the warden did not have any emotions on his face and said coldly, "It is difficult to show a treasure priced at tens of thousands Xianming points to people who are not exchanging for it. Do you have 40 Xianming points?" The warden's attitude was neither cold nor warm, and his words were indeed by the rules. "No." Yi Qingtang replied honestly. The warden's expression turned even more indifferent. He showed those swords to Yi Qingtang previously because he thought that Yi Qingtang had enough Xianming points in her hands and made an exception. However, now, Yi Qingtang had spent her Xianming points away a long time ago. How was she able to fork out 40 Xianming points? Although the warden heard the news of Yi Qingtang participating in the inner sect assessment, being stationed at the Xianming Pavilion, he never paid much attention to the events in the inner sect assessment. Yet, honestly speaking, he did not believe that a new disciple who just entered the sect was able to top the excellence roll. Now that Yi Qingtang did not have any Xianming points and was unable to achieve the number 1 position, she obviously did not have the qualifications to look at the demonic blood sword, which costs tens of thousands Xianming points. "Since you don't have enough Xianming points, I cannot show you the demonic blood sword according to the rules. If you want to get a weapon you like, according to the amount of Xianming points you have, you can choose from here." The warden pointed at the weapons displayed in the open that were priced at the thousands, clearly not paying her too much attention. However, there were weird expressions on the surrounding disciples' faces at the sight, and they reckoned that the warden probably had not heard of the results of the inner sect assessment. Qin Huan was a little dissatisfied to see the warden's attitude, yet since he was after all a warden, Qin Huan was in no place to speak. Yi Qingtang had an indifferent expression on her face though. She looked at the warden who was already beginning to be impatient and said slowly, "I do not have 40,000 Xianming points, but, it should be fine if I use this, right?" Then, Yi Qingtang took out the scroll that Elder Qin gave her and placed it on the counter. The warden who was initially still idle looked at the golden scroll on the table. The casual expression on his face instantly froze and broke apart. He suddenly straightened himself and stared at the scroll in surprise. "Is it fine?" Yi Qingtang asked. The warden did not reply to Yi Qingtang immediately and carefully read the scroll. First in the inner sect entrance assessment. Eligible to exchange any treasure below 50,000 Xianming points in the Xianming Pavilion. And the words Yi Qingtang were glaringly written on the blank for the name of the number 1 position. The warden's eyes almost popped out, and he was only this close to burning a hole in that scroll. Chapter 329, Treasure Collection, 3, The warden looked at Yi Qingtang in astonishment. There was nothing abnormal with the scroll, and it was definitely impossible to be a false imitation. "You're the first on the excellence roll this year?" "Yes." Yi Qingtang nodded in reply. The warden had a complicated expression at that instant. Never did he expect that the first in the inner sect assessment this year would actually be Yi Qingtang. After falling into a trance for some time, the warden finally returned to his senses and turned around to retrieve the box containing the demonic blood sword. "This is the demonic blood sword that you asked for." When the warden placed the box in front of Yi Qingtang, he still could not help but eye her up and down. It was not that he was snobby, but it was really the sect's rule. However, Yi Qingtang winning first place was indeed unexpected. What exactly was this girl's background? He heard that Ji Xianyuan, the number 1 on the excellence roll, was in an insanely good condition. Unexpectedly, he was actually defeated by Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang was not too bothered with the warden's gaze as all her attention was focused on the sword box. At that sight, other disciples in the Xianming Pavilion could not help but gather around as they stretched their necks, wanting to see what kind of treasure Yi Qingtang exchanged for as a reward for topping the excellence roll. "Junior sister Yi, is the demonic blood sword inside?" Qin Huan's eyes twinkled. Yi Qingtang nodded. The demonic blood sword is the weapon of Qi Shui, the invincible slayer, who was addicted to killing. Tens of thousands of lives were lost under this demonic blood sword. I heard from a long time ago that Qi Shui, the invincible slayer, ultimately became mad, and his mind was counterattacked by the demonic blood sword as he massacred too many people. Gu Yanqiu uttered, clearly having heard many rumors about the demonic blood sword. Although this sword was renowned, it was extremely dangerous as well. Counterattacked by the demonic blood sword? There's such a thing. Qin Huan was shocked. Gu Yanqiu said, this demonic blood sword is no ordinary weapon. It was made by Qi Shui, the invincible slayer, himself. He held a blood sacrifice of 10 people and used their blood to make a sword. This demonic blood sword contains an extremely strong evil aura. A chill ran down Qin Huan's spine, and he silently withdrew the hand that was about to touch the sword box. And just as Gu Yanqiu and Qin Huan were talking, Yi Qingtang opened the box immediately. The moment it was opened, a cold mist was released. The simple-looking demonic blood sword was laying in the box quietly. Yi Qingtang immediately held the sword and drew it out of its scabbard. In just a moment, the surrounding temperature seemed to fall along with Yi Qingtang's action. There was a cold glint on the demonic blood sword of which reflected Yi Qingtang's orbs. There was a faint inscription in dark red on the silver blade. Good sword. Delight filled Yi Qingtang's eyes when she saw its unparalleled sharpness. She already fancied the demonic blood sword after only taking a look at it the other time. Now that she held the sword and looked at it again, she was ecstatic. Yi Qingtang could not help but perform a set of moves with the demonic blood sword. Its shining light was so menacing that birds would flee in fear. A thin cold air diffused in the surrounding along with the dancing of the demonic blood sword. Qin Huan, who was uneasy after hearing the rumors of the demonic blood sword, was completely filled with admiration after looking at it. It really is a good sword. The warden said, of course it is. If not for the rumors, one can dream on about obtaining the sword without 100,000 Xianming points. Chapter 330, Treasure Collection, 4, 100,000 Xianming points. Qin Huan gulped silently. However, a moment later, he felt that, given such aura exuding from the demonic blood sword, 100,000 Xianming points were worth it. Should he be glad for junior sister Yi that there were bad rumors about this demonic blood sword? The onlooking disciples were dizzy from the motion of the demonic blood sword and were extremely envious. Even if it was really as dangerous as rumored, they would not give up such a magnificent sword if they had the chance. Swordsmanship was the main specialization of Xianling's sect, and if they could obtain this divine weapon, they would be able to scale even greater heights in the future. After finishing admiring the sword, Yi Qingtang placed it back into its scabbard and looked at the warden. I want to exchange for the demonic blood sword. Junior sister Yi, are you not going to look at other weapons? Gu Yanqiu asked carefully. Yi Qingtang shook her head. There were countless treasures in Xianming Pavilion, but no matter how precious or amazing they were not as good as an item that suited her. Moreover, using the reward of 50,000 Xianming points to exchange for a demonic blood sword that was worth 100,000 Xianming points, it was obviously a huge gain. Seeing that Yi Qingtang had made up her mind, Gu Yanqiu did not say anything else. The warden took the scroll and handed the demonic blood sword to Yi Qingtang. From that moment on, the owner of the demonic blood sword was Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang removed the ordinary sword that was initially hung on her waist and replaced it with the demonic blood sword. Although the sword was still in its scabbard, she could still faintly sense the coldness from the demonic blood sword. Junior sister Yi, can you let me touch this demonic blood sword? Qin Huan's eyes were filled with envy as he asked cheekily. Yi Qingtang drew the sword out readily and handed it to Qin Huan. Qin Huan held the demonic blood sword excitedly, but the moment his hands touched it, there was an icy sensation in his palm that pierced into his bones, and a powerful overbearing force enveloped his mind instantly. Almost a second later, Qin Huan frantically stuffed the demonic blood sword back into Yi Qingtang's hands. Although Qin Huan only held the sword for a short moment, his forehead was already covered in a layer of cold sweat. Senior brother Qin. Yi Qingtang looked at Qin Huan's slightly pale face in confusion. Qin Huan composed himself and swept that overbearing force away with difficulty. However, when he looked at Yi Qingtang, still in a state of shock, he realized that Yi Qingtang did not have any abnormalities when holding on to the demonic blood sword. What was going on? No. Nothing. It seems, this sword is still the most suitable for you. Qin Huan smiled stiffly with apprehension still lingering in his heart. Previously, senior brother Gu said that this demonic blood sword had the effect of counterattacking the holder, and he thought that the rumors were not real. However, only when he really held on the demonic blood sword did he realize that the rumors were not completely baseless. This demonic blood sword was indeed iffy. Yet, looking at Yi Qingtang's reactions, it was obvious that she was not affected by the demonic blood sword at all. It seemed this sword was really suited for Yi Qingtang. Since junior sister Yi has exchanged her item, let's go eat a good meal. Treat it as me celebrating for you. Qin Huan shook his head, and his expression returned back to normal. However, his earlier reaction fell into Gu Yanqius' eyes, and Gu Yanqiu only looked down slightly without uttering anything. It was not just Gu Yanqiu who noticed Qin Huan's unusual reaction upon holding the sword, the other disciples around them sensed it as well. Is this demonic blood sword really as heretical as rumored? Most probably. Otherwise, why would it be sold at a lowered price? Didn't you see Qin Huan's face turning pale when he held the sword just now? But, didn't nothing happen when Yi Qingtang held it? The disciples were confused and did not have a clue as to whether the rumors about the demonic blood sword were real or not. Chapter 331, Resentment. It was a good day for Yi Qingtang as she obtained both first place in the assessment and the sword that she fancied. Since Qin Huan was treating, the group would obviously not stand on ceremony, and Yi Qingtang even called Lin Long as well as Yun Shu to join them as well. She had to move into the inner sect the next day and could make use of this opportunity to meet up with them. Just as Yi Qingtang and the rest were headed for the celebration, two figures, quietly standing under a tree not far away, took in the sight. Su Wan pursed her lips and had a complicated expression as she looked at Lu Xiuwen, who was holding onto a crutch and standing under the tree with difficulty. After the disciplinary hall incident, Lu Xiuwen spent near half a month on the bed. The pain from 50 strokes of flogging caused him to be unable to participate in any cultivation for a period of time, but now, with a body that had yet to fully recover, Lu Xiuwen walked to the outer sect, and he glared at Yi Qingtang, who was crowded by Yun Shu, Lu Xiuwen, and the rest. Senior brother Lu, your injuries have not fully recovered, and you should not stand for a long time. Why don't you head back to rest? Su Wan said gently. Lu Xiuwen did not reply to her, and his eyes never left Yi Qingtang's back view. Until Yi Qingtang completely disappeared from his line of sight, he finally said something. How can it be? There was a strong restraint in his hoarse voice. What? Su Wan was a little confused. Suddenly, Lu Xiuwen clenched his fist and punched a tree branch near him heavily. How can Yi Qingtang possibly be first in the inner sect assessment? She is a red spirit root. How can she win against Ji Xianyuan? Lu Xiuwen felt like he was going to have a mental breakdown. When he was recuperating, he already heard that Yi Qingtang wanted to humiliate herself and took part in the inner sect assessment. To him, all of this was undoubtedly a big joke. He simply did not believe that Yi Qingtang had the ability to crawl into the inner sect. However, never had he thought that things would actually develop to this stage. Yi Qingtang entered the inner sect, and she really was able to get first in the assessment. Senior brother Lu, Su Wan looked at Lu Ziyuan's ferocious expression, and fear filled her. Senior brother Lu, who usually appeared noble and arrogant, had a furious expression that was as frightening as a beast. Junior sister Su, are you sure you didn't hear wrong? Lu Xiuwen asked, refusing to give up. Although I didn't go to the assessment site, senior sister Lu Yin went there personally and told me the news right after the assessment ended. When I was on the way to find you, I heard many disciples discussing it as well, Su Wan said and pursed her lips. Not just Lu Xiuwen, but even she completely did not expect that Yi Qingtang, the disciple with the most inferior natural endowment amongst the new disciples, would actually be the first in their batch to enter the inner sect. Regardless of Su Wan or Lu Xiuwen, their spirit roots were way better than Yi Qingtang's, and even their family backgrounds completely crushed the unknown Yi family of Lin Town. However, yet, Yi Qingtang had become an inner sect disciple who they could only look up to in the future. Lu Xiuwen took a deep breath and narrowed his eyes. Junior sister Su, help me back to my room. He definitely would not give up like that. Even Yi Qingtang with a red spirit root could enter the inner sect, a mighty green spirit root like him would naturally have a chance to as well. The score between him and Yi Qingtang was not over. Chapter 332, Sword Boy and Attendant Girl, 1. The next morning, Yi Qingtang and the other 3 people walked up the stairs to the inner sect under the envious eyes of many outer sect disciples. The outer and inner sect were linked by an illusory door, and beyond this door, the outer sect would not be able to see the inner sect at all. Entering the illusory door once again, Yi Qingtang had a mood entirely different from in her previous lifetime. It was just a door apart, but the pavilions in the inner sect were lingering with spirit energy, and the amount of energy in the entire area simply could not be compared to the outer sect. In the inner sect, all the disciples each lived in independent small courtyards, and the new disciples were led to the northern wing. The warden brought Yi Qingtang to her yard and continued bringing Ji Xianyuan and the rest to their respective residence. Yi Qingtang looked at the elegant yard before her and lifted a hand, wanting to open the door. But before Yi Qingtang's hand touched the door, it was already hurriedly opened by someone from the inside. A shy head popped out from behind the door. It was a young boy who looked only about 11 or 12 years old. His big and bright eyes fell on Yi Qingtang, and once he saw an inner sect waist tablet on Yi Qingtang's waist, his eyes suddenly brightened. Hurriedly opening the door wide open, he showed a bright smile on his tiny, fair face as he walked out quickly. Lady Yi, Ni Shang and I have been waiting for you. The courtyard is already cleaned up. We hope that you're satisfied with it. Yi Qingtang looked at the child before her, and a thought struck her. The special treatment for inner sect disciples was not only in their place of residence and cultivation environment. Their day-to-day meals and clothing were served by people appointed by the sect. After entering the inner sect, every inner sect disciple would be accompanied by a young sword boy and attendant girl as arranged by the sect. These 2 people would take care of everything for the inner sect disciples. The growing child before Yi Qingtang should be the sword boy whom Xianling's sect allocated to wait on her, while Ni Shang, as mentioned, should be the attendant girl. Lady Yi, hurry in. The sword boy welcomed Yi Qingtang into the courtyard respectfully. The courtyard was not too big, but when compared to the outer sect's residence, it was many times better. Although the sword boy and attendant girl lived here as well, they stayed in the side room. It could be said that the entire courtyard was for Yi Qingtang to use only. What is your name? Yi Qingtang asked the sword boy. My name is Fei Ying, replied the sword boy. Fei Ying. Yi Qingtang was slightly taken aback, and a surprised look flashed across her eyes as she looked at the young boy before him. The sword boys and attendant girls in the inner sect were not ordinary servants. According to the rules of the sect, Only those recommended by powerful people had the qualifications to participate in the sex entrance assessment. However, natural endowment and talent were not only present in descendants of influential family clans, and some gifted children occasionally appeared in ordinary families. It was just that these children did not have a good enough background to become a sect disciple. However, sex had given these gifted kids from a normal background some opportunities. Those who were young and had pretty good natural endowments could be recruited into the sect through another mean to become sword boys and attendant girls and wait on inner sect disciples. Honestly speaking, the position of these sword boys and attendant girls in the inner sect might just be slightly higher than those of outer sect disciples. Chapter 333, Sword Boy and Attendant Girl. 2. If the flair of the sword boy and attendant girl was great enough, they could be accepted as a disciple as an exception once they matured. However, these situations were very rare. After entering the inner sect in her previous life, Yi Qingtang heard of such a prodigy where the sword boy was promoted to an inner sect disciple, and the name of that boy was Fei Ying. Yi Qingtang only heard some rumors regarding Fei Ying in her previous life and knew that his endowment was even greater than some of the inner sect disciples. It was just that he was from a humble family. Despite that, his endowment freed him from the limitation of his family background, and he was highly regarded by the elders. However, a while after Fei Ying became an inner sect disciple, he committed murder in the inner sect. After killing 3 inner sect disciples, he fled out of Xianling sect. Xianling sect once ordered an arrest warrant on Fei Ying. A number of disciples had gone to catch him, but all of them died in Fei Ying's hands. As the number of people Fei Ying murdered increased constantly, his name was even listed in the assassination roll. It could be said that a few years later in the previous life, Fei Ying became malefic and betrayed and fled the sect. Yi Qingtang never expected that she would actually meet Fei Ying, who just became a sword boy when she entered the inner sect a few years earlier. And this malefic who killed inner sect disciples in the future was actually her sword boy. Is there anything wrong? Fei Ying looked at Yi Qingtang anxiously. He had entered Xianling sect for about 2 years where he had been receiving lessons. Yi Qingtang was the first inner sect disciple he served, and he was very worried that she would be dissatisfied with his actions and words. After all, sword boys like them did not have any place before the inner sect disciples. If they caused the inner sect disciples to be unhappy, their future days would be extremely tough. Nothing. Yi Qingtang sensed the nervousness on Fei Ying's face and immediately shook her head with a smile. No matter what the rumors about Fei Ying were in the previous life, the young boy before her did not bring any sense of danger and was instead innocent and pure. Exactly because there was a possibility of sword boys and attendant girls becoming inner sect disciples, many disciples deliberately guarded against them and even treated them extremely harshly. Although Fei Ying heard Yi Qingtang, he was still unable to fully relax. Once Yi Qingtang reached the door of her room, a pretty young girl with hair tied in 2 buns stood outside the door in a perfectly straight position. Once she saw Yi Qingtang, she immediately knelt and bowed. Ni Shang greets Mississippi. Compared to Fei Ying, who carried rumors of a malefic in the previous life, Ni Shang was fair and delicate, looking at most 12 or 13. Although she was still young, her facial features were already very developed. It seemed that in a few years' time, she would become a stunning little beauty. The room is already prepared for you. Quickly go in and take a look, Mississippi. Yi Qingtang nodded slightly and entered her room. The room was rather wide with an elegant and unique furnish. There was a silver tablecloth draped on the table near the door, and the pale pink lotus embroidery on it was exceptionally attractive. Yi Qingtang took a glance of the room and turned to face Fei Ying and Ni Shang, who were standing outside the door. It is very nicely decorated. You've worked hard, thank you. It's good that you like it. You don't need to be so polite to us. It is our job to serve you, Ni Shang said in a fluster. Chapter 334, Sword Boy and Attendant Girl. 3. Yi Qingtang smiled. Turning around, she saw a dressing table in her bedroom and said, "Fei Ying, move this dressing table into Ni Shang's room." Yi Qingtang's words stunned both Fei Ying and Ni Shang. "Miss, how can you do this?" Ni Shang could not help but panic. Yi Qingtang chuckled. "Why not? I won't use it anyway. Furthermore, I intend to add a couch here. If this dressing table is here, the couch would not fit. You want to add a couch in the bedroom?" Ni Shang was confused and fell into a trance when she saw Yi Qingtang's extreme beauty. Indeed, with such looks, why would she still need any makeup? Yi Qingtang nodded. "I still have a silver wolf which will be sent here soon. It usually sleeps in the same room as me. Moving the couch in would be convenient for it to rest." When they entered the inner sect, all spirit pets were required to be transported by specialized people. Yi Qingtang wanted to bring the silver wolf over herself but could only head here alone first due to the sect's rules. Recalling how she was too busy with the assessment and neglected the silver wolf in this period of time, Yi Qingtang was worried that it would blame her. Silver wolf, Ni Shang's face turned blank. She knew that quite a number of disciples would raise spirit pets, and there was an area to keep the spirit pets in the inner sect disciples' courtyard. However, it was her first time hearing of bringing the spirit pet into the room to sleep together with it like Yi Qingtang. Ni Shang was extremely surprised, and on the other hand, perhaps it was because Fei Ying was a boy, his eyes could not stop twinkling when he heard the word silver wolf. As they talked, a few handymen from the sect pushed a metal cage into the yard. "Miss, your spirit pet is transported," a handyman notified. Yi Qingtang broke out in smiles at that and walked out with Ni Shang and Fei Ying following right after. A huge wolf with a reflective silver shine all over its body was standing in a wide metal cage. If Mu Su were there then and saw his master being transported to Yi Qingtang in a cage, he might just break down immediately. Fei Ying's eyes almost popped out after seeing that silver wolf. "I've never seen such a huge silver wolf." Before he became a sword boy, he helped out in the spirit pet hall for a period of time. There were different types of spirit pets in the spirit pet hall, and the number of wolf breeds was not small. However, none of them could be compared to the silver wolf before him. Yi Qingtang opened the metal cage, and the silver wolf walked out calmly without any orders from Yi Qingtang throughout. This scene fell into the eyes of the handymen who transported the silver wolf over, and they found it rather magical. When they were transporting the silver wolf, they thought it was merely an ordinary wolf and even brought instruments to prevent the silver wolf from struggling since its owner was not by its side. Yet, who knew? The silver wolf was exceptionally calm and did not require to be scolded by anyone. Throughout the transportation journey, it was quiet and did not struggle at all. "Miss, please take a look. If you've confirmed that there's nothing wrong, we will take our leave first." The handyman looked at the silver wolf which had an extraordinary bearing. They had transported many spirit pets on usual days, but such a fierce wolf was a first. Lowering her body, Yi Qingtang ruffled the silver wolf's shiny fur with a smile and replied, "Everything is fine. Thank you for the trouble." Chapter 335, How are you doing recently? 1. Yi Qingtang smiled and brought the silver wolf into her room after the servant left. She introduced Fei Ying and Ni Shang to the silver wolf. Fei Ying was obsessed with the appearance of the silver wolf, but Ni Shang was a little intimidated. However, the silver wolf did not seem to be aggressive. Instead, it seemed to be ignoring them and stood beside Yi Qingtang. "Young lady, what's the name of your silver wolf?" Fei Ying blinked his eyes and asked. Yi Qingtang was stunned by Fei Ying's question and then realized. She did not even remember to name the silver wolf after so long. She touched her chin and stared at the silver wolf. I did not think of that. How about snow? Wang Kai. Xiao Guai. Yi Qingtang ignored how stiff the silver wolf was. She slapped her leg and said, Xiao Guai will do. Fei Ying and Ni Shang were stunned as they witnessed their young lattice ability of naming. However, at least Xiao Guai was slightly better than Wang Kai. Both of them were glad that their names were given by the sect. If their young lady were to name them, it would be horrible. Yi Qingtang was satisfied with the name Xiao Guai. She completely ignored the reaction of the silver wolf and called the name repeatedly. Fei Ying and Ni Shang thought that if the silver wolf could talk, it would be totally speechless by the name Xiao Guai. Fei Ying removed the dressing table according to Yi Qingtang's request and moved in the soft mattress. Ni Shang placed a box on the table. There were 10 bottles of elixirs in the box. Young lady, these are your assigned soul condensation pills. Yi Qingtang released her hand from the silver wolf slowly. She raised her brows as she stared at the 10 bottles of soul condensation pills. The usage of the soul condensation pills was the same as the Shieling elixirs given by the outer sect, but it was much more effective. One bottle of the soul condensation pills was worth 300 Xianming points. Even if the outer sect disciples wanted to purchase that, they did not have the ability to do so. However, every inner sect disciple could receive 10 bottles every month. From the perspective of elixirs, the inner sect disciples received 3,000 Xianming points more than the outer sect disciples. Yi Qingtang stared at the soul condensation pills to figure out how long they could sustain her. However, the gate of the yard was kicked open violently. The loud sound exploded beside her eyes. Yi Qingtang raised her head and saw. A few disciples with inner sect clothes wandered into her yard. The first disciple was Song Juanxiu, who had an argument with her on the center of the spring at Lingxi River the other day. Fei Ying and Ni Shang were shocked by the few inner sect disciples. They panicked and looked towards Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. Junior sister Yi, how are you doing recently? How fortunate it is that we meet again. Song Juanxiu walked into her room, and his mouth tilted. Chapter 336, How are you doing recently? 2. I didn't expect to meet you so soon after the day at the Lingxi River. I'm rather surprised, Song Juanxiu said, and his eyes scanned through the room. Song Juanxiu just received the news of the few outer sect disciples who entered the inner sect. And Yi Qingtang was one of them. He thought that he would not see her in the inner sect for the next few years, but surprisingly, she entered the inner sect in a few months. This reminded him of the incident at the Lingxi River. The rest of the inner sect disciples who came along with Song Juanxiu were expressionless, but their eyes showed little sarcasm. Senior brother Song, Yi Qingtang said softly. Junior sister Yi, you just entered the inner sect, and I think you are not very familiar with the rules in the inner sect. I think I have the responsibility to remind you of something, since we have met before, Song Juanxiu said as his sight landed on the box that contained the soul condensation pills. Fei Ying and Ni Shang could sense the intentions of Song Juanxiu. Both of them were still young, and Song Juanxiu was an inner sect disciple. They stood closely beside Yi Qingtang, and their eyes were full of anxiety. Song Juanxiu sat down beside the table casually and looked towards Fei Ying and Ni Shang. Junior sister Yi, where are the manners of the 2 servants beside you? They don't even know how to serve tea to the guests here. Ni Shang trembled and apologized immediately. I'll prepare the tea for young sir now. Ni Shang then was about to get the tea. Song Juanxiu suddenly exchanged glances with the rest of the disciples. The disciples blocked Ni Shang's way then. Ni Shang's face turned pale, as she had never experienced such a situation due to her young age. Fei Ying went forward and pulled Ni Shang to his back as he saw Ni Shang's unpleasant face. He stared at the disciples watchfully. Song Junqia's sight was cold. The identities of the sword boy and the servant were higher than those of the outer sect disciples, but they were still inferior compared to the inner sect disciples. How dare you to stare at inner sect disciples as a sword boy and a servant? Song Juanxiu shouted. Fei Ying and Ni Shang were stunned. Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes and pulled the two shocked children to her back. They are still young, and they just entered the inner sect not long ago. Please forgive them if they do not behave well now, senior brother Song. Yi Qingtang explained. Song Juanxiu chuckled. Junior sister Yi, I will not blame you if they do not know the manners, since you just entered the inner sect as well. However, someone needs to teach them. You are very kind, but you should not spoil them with your kindness. They are servants, and they should be punished when they do not respect us. Junior sister Yi, am doing this for your own good. Song Juanxiu threw another glance to the disciples, and they immediately pulled Fei Ying and Ni Shang over. Yi Qingtang's face changed. The sect did not allow any fights between the disciples, so Song Juanxiu would not do anything to her in the sect. Thus, he found an excuse to punish Fei Ying and Ni Shang to warn her. Song Juanxiu still resented her for the incident at the Lingxi River. Chapter 337, How are you doing recently? 3. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes as she sensed the panic from Fei Ying and Ni Shang. Fei Ying and Ni Shang were really terrified. It was easy for inner sect disciples to punish them. There were even rumors about sword boys and servants being beaten to death just because they disrespected the inner sect disciples. Fei Ying and Ni Shang stared at the disciples who were going to surround them. They felt the coldness spreading in their body as the disciples stretched their hands out. However, the moment when they were terrified, an arm blocked the incoming hands. Yi Qingtang stood right in front of them and stopped the action of the disciples. She then turned and looked at Song Juanxiu. Song Juanxiu, though I just entered the sect, the warden of the inner sect had told me some of the rules here. If my servant made any mistake, I would be the one to punish them. Now, you want to bypass me to punish my people, isn't that considered disobeying the rules? Yi Qingtang said rightfully. She did not intend to compromise at all. He needed to ask for her permission before touching her people. Fei Ying and Ni Shang were surprised as they saw Yi Qingtang standing in front of them. Song Junqia's face darkened as he did not expect Yi Qingtang to know such a rule. He then smiled suddenly. It seems like you know quite a lot here, he waved his hand, and a few disciples stepped back. Song Juanxiu then noticed the box with the soul condensation pills inside. A streak of evilness sparkled through his eyes. He suddenly took out one bottle of the soul condensation pills and stared at the bottle with interest. Junior sister Yi, the inner sect is totally different from the outer sect, right? I think the soul condensation pills are rare in the outer sect. Song Juanxiu raised his eyes to look at Yi Qingtang. The moment he finished his words, he lifted his hand casually, but his elbow knocked the box with the soul condensation pills inside. The whole box of soul condensation pills dropped onto the ground as his elbows swung past through. The cracking sound was heard instantly as the elixirs rolled to the ground. Song Juanxiu showed an evil smile, and he pretended to be shocked. I'm so sorry. I was careless. What are you waiting for? Help junior sister Yi to pick up the soul condensation pills. The few disciples certainly understood his intention. They seemed to be very helpful and went forward, but the soul condensation pills on the floor were crushed to powder as they stepped around. I apologize again, junior sister Yi. Only these few are left. Song Juanxiu nodded in contentment as he saw the crushed soul condensation pills. He pretended to be guilty and picked up a few soul condensation pills that were full of mud. Fei Ying raged as he witnessed the precious soul condensation pills being stepped purposely by Song Juanxiu and the rest. He held Yi Qingtang's sleeves tightly. He would definitely do something on impulse if Yi Qingtang did not stop him. Young lady. This is really too extreme. Fei Ying gritted his teeth and said. He could see the intentions of Song Juanxiu at his age. Chapter 338, The Tyrant, 1. However, Yi Qingtang just shook her head. She certainly knew what Song Junqia's intentions were. Fei Ying, clean the floor now. Fei Ying was stunned, but he could only hold his fist tightly. He swept the broken bottles and crushed soul condensation pills. He could feel his heart bleeding. Song Juanxiu felt satisfied as he stared at Yi Qingtang. She would not dare to argue with them since she was just a new inner sect disciple. The silver wolf that was standing beside Yi Qingtang witnessed everything coldly. Its sight was fierce, but the look disappeared when it looked at Yi Qingtang. There was no trace of anger on her face. Instead, a faint smile could be seen from her eyes. She took a glance at the clean floor and then looked outside. How could she not know about Song Junqia's intentions? However, if she remembered correctly, the tyrant of the inner sect should be here by now. A figure appeared at her gate just when she was thinking about that. That was a tall and arrogant young man. His face was fierce and rebellious. He walked into the room directly. He saw Song Juanxiu and the rest squeezing in the room once he entered. He frowned and asked unpleasantly, "Where is the new disciple?" Song Junqia's attention was captured by the voice. He looked over, and the whole group was stunned when they saw the young man. Feng Moli. Why did he suddenly come over? Junior brother Feng. How come you are here? Song Juanxiu tensed up as he stared at Feng Moli. Feng Moli was very impatient. He took a glance at Song Juanxiu. Do I need to report to you wherever I go? It's none of your business. Song Junqia's face clouded, but he felt awkward as Feng Moli challenged him. Feng Moli was the famous tyrant of the inner sect. His grandfather was the internal elder of the Xianling inner sect. The young man was very talented, and his abilities were one of the strongest in the inner sect. His behavior in the inner sect was rude and unreasonable, which was the reason why he was called the tyrant. Even Song Juanxiu, who had some connections with the inner sect warden, tried to avoid Feng Moli. Feng Moli was totally not interested to talk to Song Juanxiu. He scanned through the room and noticed his target. He raised his chin as he looked at Yi Qingtang. Are you the new one here? Yi Qingtang nodded. Feng Moli sized up Yi Qingtang and asked, Do you know the rules of the inner sect? Roughly. Please advise me on the areas that I do not know. Yi Qingtang responded nicely. Feng Moli was quite satisfied with Yi Qingtang's answer. The wardens and the elders should have taught you the rules of the inner sect, but today, I'm here to tell you my rules. Chapter 339 The Tyrant, 2, Please go on. My rules are simple, give me 30% of your soul condensation pills every month. Then, I will look after you if you have any troubles. Song Juanxiu just brought a group of people to show off. Now, Feng Moli was even more extreme. He came to ask for a protection fee. Song Juanxiu, whose face was unpleasant, sneered as he heard Feng Moli's words. His malicious sight landed on Yi Qingtang. He forgot about that. Feng Moli had a bad reputation in the inner sect. Asking for protection fee was a part of it. If new disciples dared to reject, Feng Moli would torture them to death. Song Juanxiu was waiting for the show to begin. He did not dare to do anything to Yi Qingtang in the sect, but foam moly. He had numerous ways to torture her. Now, he just needed to sit at the side and watch the show. Normal people could not even imagine the constant threat and extortion. A faint smile appeared in Yi Qingtang's eyes as she stared at the arrogant foam moly. Yi Qingtang spoke when Song Juanxiu was still waiting for her reaction. But, my soul condensation pills were all given to senior brother Song. Song Juanxiu, who was waiting for the show, was shocked upon hearing her words. What did she just say? Foam moly frowned instantly. Yi Qingtang continued worriedly. I have heard of such inner sect rules. I gave all my soul condensation pills when senior brother Song asked for it just now. He said he would look after me as well. Song Juanxiu opened his eyes wide. What nonsense are you talking about? Yi Qingtang gave a perfectly guileless look to Song Juanxiu. Senior brother Song, I'm telling the truth. Did you not take all the soul condensation pills? Senior brother Feng, if you do not believe me, you can search my room. I promise there is no single bottle of the soul condensation pills in the room. I have given them all to senior brother Song. Yi Qingtang even opened her space ring in front of everyone to show that there were no soul condensation pills inside. Song Juanxiu felt as if his brain had exploded. The 10 bottles of soul condensation pills were smashed by him just now. Even the residues were cleaned by the sword boy. Foam moly scanned through Yi Qingtang's room. He saw that the box that was supposed to contain the soul condensation pills was now empty. His face darkened, and he gazed at Song Juanxiu instantly. Song Juanxiu, what do you want? Every disciple knew that Foam moly asked for a protection fee in the inner sect. Yet, Song Juanxiu dared to take over his business. Junior brother Feng. This is a mistake. I have never taken Yi Qingtang's soul condensation pills. Song Junqia's whole body froze as he was stared at by Foam moly. He was very clear how horrifying the tyrant in front of him was. He would never dare to take over his business. Song Juanxiu wanted to beat Yi Qingtang to death now. It was obvious that she was finding trouble for him. Chapter 340, The Paragon Skill, 1, Foam moly looked at Song Juanxiu, who was trying to explain coldly. He scanned through the other few disciples standing behind Song Juanxiu. If he was not asking for a protection fee, why would he bring a group of people over to a new disciple's place? Song Juanxiu had no way to explain himself now. If he knew that Yi Qingtang would frame him earlier, he would definitely not have smashed those soul condensation pills. He did not get a single bottle of the soul condensation pills, and instead, he had to face the tyrant of the inner sect. Yi Qingtang smiled as she saw Song Junqia's desperate face. Senior brother Feng, both of you said that you will look after me in future. I just entered the inner sect, and I want to find a stronger person to rely on. May I know, which one of you is stronger? Foam moly sneered. His eyes were half closed, and he stared at Song Juanxiu. Senior brother Song, what do you say? A layer of red flames surrounded Foam moly's body as he finished his words. The temperature around suddenly rose. Song Juanxiu could feel cold sweat on his back when he saw the red flame surrounding Foam moly. The Paragon Skill. Song Junqia's brain almost exploded. Yi Qingtang was slightly surprised when she saw the flame surrounding Foam moly's body. The Paragon Skill was one of the highest skills in cultivation. Only people who possessed a yellow spirit root or better could understand the Paragon Skill. People with more superior spirit roots could understand more powerful Paragon Skill. There were millions of people who cultivated, and the levels of spirit root differed from each other. The Paragon Skill was the power that everyone dreamed about. Only extremely talented people could understand the Paragon Skill. The ability of those with the Paragon skill had entered another level. People with the Paragon skill could easily defeat opponents in the same level or with the same spirit root, or even challenge opponents of a higher level. It was just that. It was extremely difficult to understand the Paragon skill. There might be at most one out of millions. When Yi Qingtang entered the inner sect in her previous life, Feng Moli had already understood the Paragon skill. However, she did not know that he had understood the Paragon skill at such a young age. The disciples who followed Song Juanxiu opened their eyes when they saw the flame. They would never dare to challenge Feng Moli when he understood the Paragon skill. Even though they had more people, they were so shocked that no one made any sound. Junior brother Feng, we can discuss. Song Juanxiu felt that his heart was going to jump out of his chest as Feng Moli was about to use the Paragon skill. He would never dare to fight against Feng Moli. Feng Moli totally neglected Song Juanxiu. Song Juanxiu almost went insane. Others might not do anything extreme in the sect, but Feng Moli was the infamous tyrant. He was the only disciple in the Xianling sect who understood the Paragon skill. He was the most talented disciple in the sect. Every elder and sect master valued him. Even if he were to fight with other disciples in the sect, he was the only one who might not face any punishments. Junior brother Feng, I broke the rules today. The 10 bottles of soul condensation pills will be my apologizing gift. Song Juanxiu, who was showing off in front of Yi Qingtang previously, was entirely frightened by Feng Moli. Chapter 341, The Paragon Skill, 2, Song Juanxiu immediately took out 10 bottles of his own soul condensation pills and placed them on the table. It seemed as if Feng Moli's hand would land on his head if he were to delay it for any longer. Song Juanxiu never imagined that he would provoke Feng Moli when he only wanted to give Yi Qingtang a lesson. He lost his reputation and had to compensate 10 bottles of soul condensation pills. He had to hold all his complaints. Feng Moli lifted his eyebrows as he saw the 10 bottles of soul condensation pills on the table. He then looked towards Yi Qingtang. Now you know who's stronger. Yi Qingtang was amused by Feng Moli's arrogant face. Her face remained serious, and she said, I shall thank you first for looking after me in future, senior brother Feng. Without the Paragon skill, Feng Moli's ability might not be the strongest in the inner sect, but still, no one could compare with his talent. People like Song Juanxiu were not even qualified to fight with Feng Moli. Feng Moli felt satisfied and provoked Song Juanxiu. This person's soul condensation pills will be mine in future. If I see you again, you should know the consequences. Song Juanxiu did not dare to explain to Feng Moli anymore. He could only nod his head heavily and said, Of course, junior brother Feng. I have something on, and I shall leave first. He then escaped the place confoundedly with the other disciples. Feng Moli dispersed the flame around his body after Song Juanxiu left. The temperature in the surroundings returned to normal conditions. I had to waste my energy and time to talk to him. The extra soul condensation pills will serve as compensation for your terrible observation. What a joke to compare the useless Song Juanxiu with me. Feng Moli took all the 10 bottles of soul condensation pills that Song Juanxiu left and placed them into his space ring. Fei Ying was confused. He thought that Feng Moli was kind as he challenged Song Juanxiu. However, he was more relentless. He took all the 10 bottles of the soul condensation pills. Yi Qingtang did not show any detestation against Feng Moli. She smiled and said, Of course, they should be the compensation for my ignorance. Feng Moli glanced at Yi Qingtang. At least you understand the situation. Though he got what he wanted from other new disciples just now, those people's reactions were not as obedient as those from junior sister Yi here. Remember, 3 bottles of soul condensation pills every month. Feng Moli withdrew his sight and left the sentence before he wandered out of the yard. After Feng Moli disappeared from the yard, Fei Ying finally opened his mouth and spoke. Young lady, both of them are bullying us. I thought that Feng Moli is a good guy. Who knew that he was worse? He took all the 10 bottles of soul condensation pills. Fei Ying's eyes were red as Feng Moli was even more aggressive than Song Juanxiu. Yi Qingtang smiled at Fei Ying's angry face. She could make the connection between the little guy who could not even hide his thoughts with the killer who murdered disciples of the same sect. Just let him take them. Anyway, the soul condensation pills were not mine. How come you are angry when I'm completely fine? Yi Qingtang made fun of Fei Ying and said. Chapter 342, The Paragon Skill, 3, Fei Ying still wanted to say something, but then he remembered that the 10 bottles of soul condensation pills that Feng Moli took away belonged to Song Juanxiu. He felt more relieved. He looked at Yi Qingtang and then the yard. He was curious about the red flames surrounding Feng Moli's body previously. Young lady, is Feng Moli very strong? I saw that Song Juanxiu was afraid of him just now. Aren't they all inner sect disciples? How come Song Juanxiu who brought more people would be afraid of Feng Moli alone? Yi Qingtang replied. There is a difference in the abilities of inner sect disciples. What could Song Juanxiu do even though he had more people? Feng Moli understood the Paragon skill. How would Song Juanxiu dare to challenge him? The Paragon skill? Fei Ying was stunned and said. I heard this before from the wardens at the Spirit Pet Hall. It seems to be a very powerful skill. Only people with a yellow spirit root or above can understand the powerful skill that belongs to him only, right? Yi Qingtang nodded and said, more accurately, the possibility is extremely small. Most people could only dream about the Paragon skill and would never be able to understand that. Feng Moli was the only disciple in the Xianling sect who understood the Paragon skill. That was the reason why Feng Moli could be so aggressive in the inner sect. He was the key focus of the elders and the sect master based on his talent and the Paragon skill. It could be said that no one in the inner sect dared to provoke Feng Moli. Yi Qingtang did not have a spirit root in her previous life, so she could not have learned the Paragon skill. However, this time, though she only possessed an orange spirit root, she was confident that she could nurture her spirit root, and then, she might have the chance to understand the Paragon skill that she did not have the chance to touch in her previous life. Fei Ying's eyes showed his eagerness for the Paragon skill. He looked at his abdomen and said, I'm not sure whether I will have the chance to understand the Paragon skill. Yi Qingtang looked at Fei Ying in a complex way. Even though Fei Ying was just a sword boy, he possessed a high-quality green spirit root. He was not born into a renowned family. If he was, he would have definitely been able to enter the sect as an official disciple based on his potential. Yi Qingtang did not know much about Fei Ying's story in her previous life. She only knew that he murdered his senior and junior brothers. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. The Fei Ying in front of her now was totally different from the one in the rumor in her previous life. She did not know what happened to Fei Ying in her previous life that resulted in him killing other disciples. Fei Ying did not notice Yi Qingtang's gaze. He chatted with Ni Shang for a while and left for his duties. Yi Qingtang sat in the hall and lowered her eyes. Feng Moli just released a little breath of the Paragon skill, and it had such great results. How powerful would it be if he revealed the entire Paragon skill? The Paragon skill, Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes as she stared at the silver wolf beside her. She hugged its neck and murmured. Xiao Guai, do you think I will understand the Paragon skill in the future? The silver wolf did not have any reactions, but its eyes were cold when Yi Qingtang did not look at it. Perhaps it was because of the fear of Feng Moli, Song Juanxiu was much more obedient in the coming days and did not appear in front of Yi Qingtang. There were usually many cultivation periods in the inner sect, and because there were plenty of highly skilled people, all the disciples were busy cultivating. Yi Qingtang had already been through everything in her previous life and was naturally familiar with the inner sect's matters. Thus, she was able to get used to the things here quickly. Regardless of whether it was the outer or inner sect, sects would be relatively easier on new disciples who just entered. They did not need to accept any appointed missions by the sect. While Yi Qingtang lost her Jiyuan elixirs because of Song Juanxiu, the few thousand Xianming points that she still had left previously was enough to use in this 1 month. Thus, it was not urgent for her to accept rewarded missions as well. This day, Yi Qingtang just stepped out of the practice hall and coincidentally bumped into Ji Xianyuan, who was about to enter. Ji Xianyuan entered the inner sect together with Yi Qingtang, and although they were opponents who sparred before, Ji Xianyuan deeply admired Yi Qingtang's skills after that match and did not have any prejudice against her. "Junior sister Yi, are you accustomed to the inner sect?" Ji Xianyuan asked Yi Qingtang. "Fairly. I heard that you went to the Spirit Consonance River yesterday. How do you feel?" Yi Qingtang asked with a smile. She still respected Ji Xianyuan deeply. The spirit energy in the Spirit Consonance River is rich, and it naturally is the best spot for cultivation. Ji Xianyuan spoke about the Spirit Consonance River with adoration. He had heard about the Spirit Consonance River since he was in the outer sect, but the fee to enter the Spirit Consonance River for outer sect disciples was too high, and even he would not be willing to spend lavishly. Thus, he only first entered the Spirit Consonance River after becoming an inner sect disciple. At that thought, Ji Xianyuan admired Yi Qingtang's boldness for spending tens of millions of Xianming points to cultivate in the Spirit Consonance River. If it were him, he might not be able to be so resolute. However, I happened to meet some familiar people from the outer sect on my way to the Spirit Consonance River yesterday. I heard that something seemed to have happened in the outer sect these few days, Ji Xianyuan said. "Oh. What is it?" Yi Qingtang asked casually. "In the past few days, some disciples in the outer sect disappeared unknowingly within the sect. Wardens and elders have investigated for a few days and did not find any clues. Wasn't there a period of time previously where disciples who were out on missions disappeared as well? But, somehow, this time it happened within the sect," Ji Xianyuan said. Ji Xianyuan found it strange and continued saying some more things. However, Yi Qingtang's mind was no longer on his words. Find authorized novels in Webnovel faster updates, better experience please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. In the past few days. Calculating it, was that not right after she entered the inner sect? The reason for the various sect disciples' disappearance during their mission was because of the resurrection of the Blood Moon sect, but this time, disciples actually vanished within the sect. A thought suddenly struck Yi Qingtang. She had just entered the inner sect, and outer sect disciples disappeared without a reason. Apart from that person, who else was capable of doing this? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes immediately. After bidding Ji Xianyuan goodbye, she hurried out to the outer sect. Outer sect disciples did not have the authority to step into the inner sect, but it was an easy feat for inner sect disciples to go to the outer sect. In the outer sect, the Blood Moon sect elder who was in Zhou Chu's skin was walking together with a few other outer sect disciples. "Senior brother Zhou, what exactly does the sword intent that the warden has been talking about these few days mean?" A disciple looked at the Blood Moon sect elder. Previously, he only thought that Zhou Chu was a useless scumbag, but now, he felt that this senior brother Zhou was pretty well versed after interacting with him in this period of time. Chapter 344, A Beating a Day, 2, the Blood Moon sect elder replied. How can swordsmanship be explained so simply? With the sword and sword intent in the heart, the said sword intent means, although there was a great loss in the Blood Moon sect elder's skills, he had cultivated for a long time. Even if he randomly said something, it was extremely profound to those outer sect disciples. With just his talking skills, he won the compliments of many disciples in the outer sect. As the Blood Moon sect elder was about to make a high-sounding speech, he suddenly saw a familiar figure walking in his direction at top speed, which cut him from talking immediately. "Senior Brother Zhou. Why are you not talking anymore?" Those disciples were still staring at the Blood Moon sect elder and waiting for him to continue talking, but saw his face stiffen. They finally realized and looked in the direction that the Blood Moon sect elder was looking at. This look gave those disciples a shock. Isn't that Senior Sister Yi? Although Yi Qingtang entered the sect for only a short time, she was an inner sect disciple now, and outer sect disciples like them naturally addressed her as Senior Sister. Yi Qingtang's entrance into the inner sect caused a stir in the outer sect, and many were still discussing the matter until that day. However, no one had expected that Yi Qingtang, who just entered the inner sect for a few days, would actually return to the outer sect. It should be known that disciples who entered the inner sect were different from outer sect disciples like them. Who would still return here? Why is Senior Sister Yi back? Everyone was filled with curiosity, and they did not sense that the Blood Moon sect elder's face had already darkened unknowingly. "Junior Brother Zhou, I've something to say. Come with me for a while," Yi Qingtang said coldly the moment she reached the Blood Moon sect elder. The disciples looked at the Blood Moon sect elder, who had a frozen expression. The Blood Moon sect elder's lips twitched, and he replied rather stiffly. "All right." Then, Yi Qingtang brought the Blood Moon sect elder to a place without anyone. The disciples stared blankly at the back view of those two people. They did hear of the tension between Yi Qingtang and Zhou Chu, as well as the rumors that Yi Qingtang had something to do with his brother's death. Now that Yi Qingtang suddenly came to look for Zhou Chu, was she here to pick a quarrel with him? Just the thought of it caused them to feel numb. Right now, Yi Qingtang was an official inner sect disciple. How was Zhou Chu her opponent? As everyone guessed, Yi Qingtang had already led the Blood Moon sect elder to an empty place. "What are you looking for me for?" The Blood Moon sect elder looked at Yi Qingtang in annoyance. Without Yi Qingtang in the outer sect over the past few days, he was able to live very comfortably. Yet, who knew that this girl would actually return here again today? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes at the frustrated Blood Moon sect elder. "What am I looking for you for? I've only been in the inner sect for a few days, and some outer sect disciples disappeared unknowingly. Shouldn't you give me an explanation for this?" There was a slight change in the Blood Moon sect elder's eyes after hearing Yi Qingtang's words, although he initially had a frustrated expression. His eyes shifted to a side as he mumbled. "Why are you asking me for an explanation for the disappearance of those disciples? It has nothing to do with me." "Nothing to do with you?" Yi Qingtang scoffed. "Do you think I believe that?" Chapter 345, A Beating a Day, 3, I can't help it if you don't believe me. "I really didn't do anything," the Blood Moon sect elder's eyes fleeted. Yi Qingtang looked coldly at the Blood Moon sect elder, who tried to find excuses. After scanning the surrounding and ensuring there was no one nearby, she sprinted to the Blood Moon sect elder's front, and before he could react, she grabbed his collar and threw him over her shoulder. With a loud bang, the Blood Moon sect elder immediately saw stars from the beating. What are you doing?" Yi Qingtang lifted the Blood Moon sect elder who was grimacing in pain. "Don't think that I don't know how you've been looking at the disciples here as though you want to eat them up alive ever since you entered the sect. If I wasn't watching over you, you would have taken so many lives already." "I'm accused," the Blood Moon sect elder was adamant to not admit it. Yi Qingtang narrowed her threat-filled eyes. "I don't care whether you've done it or not. I'm telling you that you must enter the inner sect of Xianling sect in a month. Otherwise, he'll beat you up until all your teeth drop. She did not think that he would be so bold to kill disciples within the sect. If anyone found out about it, not only would his identity as the Blood Moon sect elder be revealed, but she would also get into trouble. Enter the inner sect? The Blood Moon sect elder suddenly looked at her. I can't even beat you the other time. How would I have the ability to enter the inner sect? Even if you wanted me to enter, you should help me to regain my powers somehow. Ow! Before the Blood Moon sect elder finished his sentence, he was punched by Yi Qingtang, and tears spilled instantly due to the pain. Goddamn Yi Qingtang! If not for the fact that my skills are not yet recovered, I would definitely chop her into pieces. I don't care what means you use, but I'm telling you that from today on, he'll give you a beating a day every day until you enter the inner sect. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes that were overflowing with threat. If this fellow continued to remain in the outer sect, God knows how many outer sect disciples would be killed by him. She must get him into the inner sect. The assessment has already ended. Where am I going to find a way to enter the inner sect? Tears were streaming from the Blood Moon sect elder's eyes after being punched by Yi Qingtang, and he wished he could scold all her ancestors. It was really a case of how a man who lost position and influence would be subjected to indignity. Find a way yourself. This is all I have to say. Yi Qingtang uttered. The Blood Moon sect elder curled his lips and thought to himself, you've entered the inner sect already, how would you have the time to beat me up? Like hell he'll believe you. He did not know that Yi Qingtang already pretty much guessed his thoughts. Looking at his indifferent behavior, Yi Qingtang's lips curled up, and a devilish smile broke out on her face. I live up to my words. Although I'm in the inner sect, senior brother Yun, senior brother Qin, and the rest are still in the outer sect. Luckily, it's almost the end of the year, and they don't have anything on hand. I believe they'll be very willing to practice with you every day. The Blood Moon sect elder's face darkened immediately. Yi Qingtang did enter the inner sect, but her group of senior brothers and sisters were still in the outer sect. If Yi Qingtang gave orders, the Blood Moon sect elder could not help but feel a chill run down his spine. Although he absorbed the essence of a few outer sect disciples, which made up a little for his loss, the skills of Lin Long, Gu Yanqiu, Qin Huan, and Yun Shu were still above average in the outer sect. If they all ganged up on him, he would only be beaten up. Chapter 346, A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. 1. At the thought that he would receive a beating every day as long as he was still in the outer sect, the Blood Moon sect elder's heart turned cold instantly. This girl was clearly a disciple from an orthodox sect. Why was it that she was even more shameless than he, a heretic sect elder, when it came to threatening people? I'll go look for my senior brothers later. You can slowly think about how you want to live from now on. After finishing her sentence, Yi Qingtang released the Blood Moon sect elder and took a glimpse at him with a spurious smile. Then, she turned around and left, seeming to be headed to brief Qin Huan and the rest. The Blood Moon sect elder watched Yi Qingtang's departing back view and was extremely aggrieved. What kind of bad luck did he have to meet Yi Qingtang, such a devilish person, in Deer City? If he knew he was going to meet Yi Qingtang in Deer City, he would have definitely made a detour. But now, it was all too late. After meeting Yi Qingtang, the Blood Moon sect elder originally thought he was lucky and felt that Yi Qingtang was only scaring him. Yet, the next morning, Qin Huan and Gu Yanqiu appeared before him with a look that harbored evil designs and invited him for a practice. The last bit of luck he felt was completely crushed. When the Blood Moon sect elder crawled up with a swollen face, his heart completely crumbled as he watched Qin Huan and Gu Yanqiu bid him goodbye. Yi Qingtang, you're ruthless. The Blood Moon sect elder finally saw it clearly that Yi Qingtang was real this time. If he did not find a way to enter the inner sect quickly, his life would end right here, much less find an opportunity to absorb essence from other disciples. Thus, the Blood Moon sect elder could only hug his head that swelled into the size of a pig's head and ran to the elder's hall, puffing. In the elder's hall, Elder Huang had been in a good mood these few days. Yuan Wei and Yi Qingtang gave him face in the inner sect assessment a few days ago. Being in a good mood, he was more patient and kind when interacting with other disciples. Elder Huang, I heard that Yuan Wei improved quite a lot recently. The elder from the outer sect's array faction asked with a smile. Yuan Wei's natural endowment was extremely high. Now that he was accepted into the sect, he obviously would not be bad if he trained hard, Elder Huang said cheerily. Now that Yi Qingtang entered the inner sect, he thought that if Yuan Wei worked hard this year, he would definitely be able to enter the inner sect next year. As the two elders were chatting, a figure suddenly appeared outside the elders' hall. Before they fixed their eyes on the person, they suddenly realized that the person standing outside the hall was actually a disciple who was badly battered. The Blood Moon sect elder stood outside the elders' hall with a swollen face and looked at Elder Huang. Elder Huang, I have something to report. Elder Huang frowned. What is it? I wish to attempt the thunder array. The Blood Moon sect elder tried to remain calm, but there was a wave of emotions in his heart. He was a dignified Blood Moon sect elder, and yet he was actually forced to go through such misery in the sect by a little girl. Even spitting a mouthful of blood would not dispel all his pent-up frustration. Thunder array. Elder Huang and the array faction's elder from aside were taken aback. The thunder array was one of the array formations that Xianling's sect provided for disciples to challenge. Up to this date, the number of disciples who could solve the thunder array could be counted with a hand, and there were barely any who could do so in the inner sect. This outer sect disciple dared to speak so wildly and challenge the thunder array. Chapter 347, A starving camel is still bigger than a horse too. What is your name? The array faction elder asked. Zhou Chu, replied the Blood Moon sect elder. The array faction elder frowned slightly. There were some disciples in the outer sect who were learning about the profound meaning behind array formations, but Zhou Chu's name was not in the list. You want to challenge the thunder formation? Are you aware that this array formation is dangerous and that you may lose your life in the array if you're not careful? Although the thunder array was provided for the sect disciples to challenge, those who dared to attempt it had learned about array formations. Moreover, the thunder array was lethal, and if the disciple had not grasped the main points, he or she would definitely be either killed or severely injured. Forget about Zhou Chu, a disciple whose name was not recorded in the array faction at all. Only a few of the disciples who studied array formations dared to attempt it. I am aware. Please give me a chance, elder. The Blood Moon sect elder felt extremely aggrieved. He was a dignified Blood Moon sect elder yet had to be so subservient and speak humbly to two useless sect elders. If this was in the past, he could kill them with just the wave of a finger. If not for that goddamn Yi Qingtang's threat, he would only attempt the whatsoever thunder array if he had nothing better to do. In terms of skills, the Blood Moon sect elder was simply unable to enter the top 10 on the excellence roll, and even if he did, he had already missed the assessment this year. To prevent Yi Qingtang from sending people to beat him up daily, he could only use this method. Was it not just an inner sect of a sect? Find authorized novels in Webnovel faster updates. Better experience please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. As a Blood Moon sect elder, would he need to use brute force if he wanted to go in? Elder Huang and the array faction elder exchanged a look. Although they thought that Zhou Chu was a little weird, they eventually agreed after considering for a while. After all, the thunder array was originally for disciples to challenge. After obtaining the permission from the two elders, the Blood Moon sect elder finally attempted the thunder array. Watching the Blood Moon sect elders, brave and heroic, back view, Elder Huang and the Array faction elder could only shake their heads. They only felt that Zhou Chu was seeking death and was not too bothered with him. The two elders returned to the topic that they were previously talking about. However, before they talked for long, a warden rushed over with a weird expression. Reporting elders, that Zhou Chu. What happened? Is he injured in the Thunder Array? Just order a physician to take a look. That will do, said the Array faction elder calmly. However, the warden shook his head hurriedly. No, Zhou Chu is not injured, and he already solved the Thunder Array. What? The Array faction elder was alarmed. Zhou Chu actually really solved the Thunder Array? How much time had passed since he left? Then, the Array faction elder's expression changed slightly. Looking at Elder Huang, who was similarly surprised, he said, Elder Huang, I did not expect Zhou Chu to solve the Array. Moreover, he solved it in such a short amount of time. I need to report this to Elder Qin of the inner sect immediately. I'll take my leave first. Then, the elder from the outer sect Array faction left. Elder Huang was a little dazed. Solving the Thunder Array was something that only elite inner sect disciples who specialized in array formations had a possibility of accomplishing. Unexpectedly, Zhou Chu actually had such amazing talent in array formations. The Blood Moon sect elder solved the Thunder Array within an extremely short span of time, displaying his high attainment in array formations. This traveled into the ears of Elder Qin, the inner sect's Array faction elder, and on that afternoon, the Blood Moon sect elder was given an exception to be accepted as a disciple under Elder Qin. There was a burst of discussions in the outer sect the moment the news was passed out. The very first moment the Blood Moon sect elder was brought into the inner sect, he saw Yi Qingtang, who was staring at him with a devious smile. We meet again, senior brother Zhou. Yi Qingtang smiled devilishly. She did not think that the Blood Moon sect elder would enter the inner sect so quickly. It seemed that senior brother Qin and the rest did take care of him relatively thoroughly. The Blood Moon sect elder whom Yi Qingtang did dirty to could only clench his teeth secretly. Only ghosts would want to meet you. How I wish I do not need to see you again for the rest of my life. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.